Heard about this Benefactor guy. This dude is talking about free energy, but here's the twist. He says it's not free energy. He's calling it energy recycling, which first off is kind of genius, right? Because when you say free energy, people immediately throw you in the crazy bin. But energy recycling, that sounds like some next level Tesla shit.
Yeah, man, it's all about the branding. But what is it that he's actually doing?
All right, check this out. He posted this. Free energy isn't actually free. This is a misnomer. It's actually a mutual exchange from the vacuum, a field of energy from which everything arises, the same energy that powers an atom. Like what? Bro, that's some deep shit. But then he breaks it down. He says you can tap into this energy without breaking any known laws of physics by using something called back EMF capture.
Whoa, back EMF capture? Sounds like some serious sci-fi tech.
Dude, listen to this. He explains that when a coil collapses using a pulsed signal, the energy that would normally just get wasted, like just dissipate as heat, can actually be recycled. He says nature gives you back energy to stabilize the system, which makes sense if you think about how nature works. Like everything in nature is always trying to find balance, right?
So equilibrium, is that like how water always levels out or something? I'm trying to remember what Ms. Murphy said to me in 6th grade science all those years ago. What was that? Oh yeah, Elon, stop eating that glue and pay attention. Man, if only I had listened, I'd probably be the one inventing energy recycling instead of just talking about it.
Exactly. So he's saying that by intentionally destabilizing the system, collapsing the field, you actually get energy back as a kind of natural response. And here's where it gets wild. He compares it to pushing a swing. If you push at the right moment, you don't need to use a lot of energy and the swing gains momentum. But instead of a swing, he's using resonance to harness that extra energy without it becoming destructive. He says most traditional systems are like a surfer fighting against the current, while his method is like riding the wave to shore.
Dude, that's crazy. So he's basically saying the energy is already there. I just suck at using it efficiently?
That's what it sounds like. He's basically saying the way we harness energy now is like trying to swim against the tide. And if we used resonance instead, we'd be tapping into energy that's already there, just waiting to be used. I don't know, man. Either this guy is onto something or he's the most poetic bullshitter of all time.
Well, if he's legit, why isn't he all over the news? I haven't heard anything from him on X, formerly Twitter. He hasn't said anything bad about me on X. So, you know, I didn't ban him or anything. Look, I'm not the monster my therapist says I am. I mean, sure, I've spent millions of dollars training to beat a kangaroo in a fist fight, but that doesn't mean I'm dangerous. It just means I get shit done.
That's the real question, man. But here's the craziest part. I looked into him, and he's not selling anything. He open sources all of it. That's the real question, man. Either the system doesn't want to hear it, or we're about to find out if this guy disappears in the middle of the night.
Dude, that's crazy. He's absolutely crazy. That means if he's telling the truth, anybody could build this in their garage. You know what I say? Go fuck yourself, Benefactor.
Nope, no patents, no paywalls, just straight up, here, take it, see for yourself. Like, what kind of madman does that? Usually people either try to cash in or they get shut down before they can say a word. But this guy, he's out there on live streams showing people exactly how to replicate it.
I mean, if you want to try to take on my Tesla tech, how dare you put out better technology that is cheaper and safer? Go fuck yourself.
That's the thing, man. If it's real and people start building it, that's a game changer. We're talking about completely shifting how we think about energy. But also, if it's real, you got to wonder how long before somebody tries to stop him.
Or maybe we can think of it like how long before his Tesla mysteriously malfunctions.
Exactly. You ever notice how every time someone gets too close to this kind of stuff, they either disappear, get discredited, or somehow have a tragic accident? But this guy's going full transparency mode. He's putting it all out there where everyone can see it. Maybe that's his strategy. If enough people know, it can't just get buried.
Holy shit, this might be one of those moments, you know, like we look back and say that was the start of something huge.
Can't you hear his voice?
All right, welcome, and welcome back to the 5th attempt at continuing this live stream. The live stream shut down on me 5 times, 4 times already. So just keep that in mind going forward. There is 2 parts to this live stream that is currently available on the channel, but it won't be connected to this live stream. So if you want to see the intro section of the origin story that I've been describing, please go back onto the live section and check that out at a later time. But for now, we're going to continue on and push on, and just be aware that if this live stream ends prematurely, go back onto the channel manually and wait for the live to open again, because I will be streaming all night. And this information is already out there. It's already open sourced. So any attempt at interfering with its dissemination at this point is kind of fruitless. But I digress. We're going to continue on. And specifically, I was talking about my production of divine science. Okay, I produced a divine science not because I had all the answers, but because no one else was presenting the information in a way that normal people could absorb. The documentary became the missing bridge between vortex-based mathematics and the plasmoid unification model. Everything I learned so far was preparing me for discoveries I hadn't even made yet. Foreshadowing activated. All right, so the origin story comes full circle in this next part. So let's jump forward to the present day. Wednesday night, when everything escalated, I've been developing what I called the lightning thief modification, an asymmetric resonant driver of sorts, inspired by elements of Bedini, echoes of Nunez, and some modifications of my own. This thing began producing a waveform I had never seen before. It wasn't a normal AC wave. It wasn't a Bedini H wave. It wasn't a simple pulsed DC pattern. It was something I named the resonant pulsed waveform, a type of synthetic alternating current. It's a waveform created by forward EMF chasing back EMF through controlled timing, that Abha coil geometry, and creating a synthetic alternate behavior between the two. This was the first time that I saw a waveform that looked like the two energies were actually interacting, not opposing. The interesting thing is, when I was measuring this on the O-scope, specifically I wanted to capture the whole picture, and I didn't want to ground out the back EMF, which is what really happens when you use the ground probe. So I was floating the probe. And I noticed when you zoom in on the micro scale, you get this kind of like convergence point where it seems like energy is just spewing out of two sides of one little tiny like condensed point of energy on the O-scope. It was really insane. You can go on the videos section of my channel and watch the synthetic AC on the O-scope. It's pretty remarkable. So there were really interesting things happening with the system. Wednesday specifically, the coil did something insane when we disconnected the 40-watt panel and did some measurements without the load connected. What I had originally thought was the coil resonated around 1 kilohertz, but we removed the load, which can act as a interrupter or alter the frequency of the system. When we removed it, it switched to 2 kilohertz on the O-scope. So as I've stated last night, I don't usually remember to check the frequency when using the O-scope because it's so small in the corner of my screen. I usually just miss it. So I've been in the habit of checking it more often. And yeah, we noticed instantly that it jumped to 2 kilohertz. So this told me a few things. Told me that the coil has a natural resonance. It told me the load suppresses that resonance. It told me the coil and driver form a kind of high Q resonant device. And something extremely unusual happens when the back EMF is routed correctly back to the battery. Now, we talked about this before last night. We're going to talk about it more tonight because it's very important. So when we disconnected the load, I smelled burnt air for a moment. And I can't be positive if it was ozone, but these coils are known to produce ozone at extremely low voltages, and we were getting on the oscope, on the analog meters, 500 plus DC and AC on the different modes it had. So that's, well above the threshold for these coils. These coils are known to produce ozone at like 70, 80 volts. Michel Morel, my lab partner and mentor, he noted, I believe around 70 or 80 volts, he got ozone really abundantly. It filled his apartment quite fast. And as you know, that can be kind of dangerous. We don't want that to happen, but it is an indicator because ozone doesn't really form in other systems unless there is some kind of corona discharge or high voltage associated with it. At least 1,000 volts traditionally is required for that kind of ionization. So that is very important to note here. When we disconnected the load, the coil also hummed a lot louder, forming what I believe is a resonance cascade, where that resonance builds up and has nowhere to go. There's no load connected to dump into. It has nowhere to go, so it just builds and builds and builds until it interferes with itself destructively, no matter the constructive origins of it. So that is another behavior of the coil when we disconnected the load. So the field behaved kind of like, I guess you would call it a shell collapsing, right? Creating what you would think of as like a void, a low pressure area, similar to bubble cavitation. It's similar to the behavior Malcolm describes in his plasmoid unification model. So that was kind of the moment I realized I was brushing up against something deeper than just pulsing a coil. We had a revelation with the diode, okay? So a couple days ago, I was sketching out the actual current flow, and we're going to get into that in a short lecture summarizing what I went over last night about actual movement of electrons in your circuit. But I had a revelation when trying to sketch out the actual flow of electrons in the system while I was at work, just, brainstorming. It was interesting because I kind of had a revelation, and I confirmed it with Google AI, which is notorious for being, a stickler for peer-reviewed data and actual scientific validated information that it provides you. So it's not like open-minded like ChatGPT, where sometimes it'll feed you what you want to hear, but it is like taking in all the data it can to give you your answers, which it can be useful if you're using it, responsibly. And but anyways, you want to double check when you're using AI with different sources. So you want to check online. Specifically, I was checking with Google AI, and it kind of confirmed what I was seeing with the energy. So what happened when we attached a high-speed diode to the positive rail of the output of the unit? Well, the light got a lot brighter, and it didn't seem to decay the battery at a faster speed like you would normally see. You turn up the brightness, it's supposed to be consuming more from the battery, right? Theoretically, you would see a faster drain on the battery, but we just didn't see that. I always have the multimeter hooked up to the battery so I can monitor it constantly. Always paying attention to it. So this realization of the way the current was actually flowing led me to believe that the back EMF was forced back into the negative rail while the forward EMF was splitting from it at the diode and being fed into the load without returning back to the battery. Now that's very important. The only return path we have is being taken by the back EMF. Now that is also important to note for when we get into more details about my theories on how this is working in a little bit. Now this tells me that the load is getting a clean, kind of sharp pulse to from the forward EMF to the light source, and it's kind of getting an unclean, distorted, dirty pulse to the battery. So this ended up being kind of a big realization, a big discovery, if it's proven to be true in what's actually happening. But I mean, all of our observation data to this point points to that happening, and we'll get into some of the measurements in a minute. So we're going to talk about the dipole observation. This was the thing that shocked me, okay? It was the moment the whole system came into focus when I started thinking about it. The dipole isn't the back EMF isn't charging the battery when it's returning to the negative terminal. It's just preventing the discharge of the battery. It's preserving the dipole from obtaining equilibrium faster. So it's slowing the decay, not actually charging it. And I think this is the problem with a lot of people who attempt to close the loop on these so-called free energy devices. They try to take any net energy gain they get from the system and dump it right back into the battery for charging purposes. But they need to think about it as discharging the negative energy into the negative terminal without the forward energy and without having the forward energy return to the battery, right? So if you look at the energy, and we can do that in a little bit tonight because we do have time, I'll point out how the energy is actually splitting from the diode, going, the forward EMF is going on kind of like what Tesla would describe as a one-wire system, where it doesn't really have a return path back to the battery. It kind of just dissipates in the load as 10 volt plus whatever the current we're getting. I was measuring AC current last night on the wire at about 300 milliamps on both rails, on the positive and negative return. So that was interesting. But the breakthrough I made kind of told us this. This system routes the collapse energy back to the negative terminal in a way that strengthens the voltage differential between the terminals, the dipole. The dipole is the potential, the charge separation between the two terminals of your battery. Right? It's creating a magnetic field between it and a north and a south pole, theoretically, when you have to visualize what's happening in the system. So we reduce the battery drain by doing this. And I proved this a long time ago, by hooking that negative up and disconnecting the negative return on the input of the whole system. So you have the negative and positive of the input that usually you just connect right to the battery, the positive and negative of the battery, and then you hook the output up to a rail, and that's not the way the system's hooked up. The negative on the input's not even hooked up to the circuit. What we have is a return path directly to the negative terminal via the output rail, negative, which is the emitter side of the transistor. And with that diode, it splits, or theoretically, it's looking like it splits that forward EMF and back EMF, at least mostly, off. So that's very interesting, because if that's true, it could very well be preserving the dipole, which explains the slower decay of the battery we've seen when connecting the system this way, specifically connecting the negative right from the output rail instead of connecting the battery back to the input of the system. So the system does this asymmetrically by leveraging the coil's geometry, by utilizing correct timing between the forward and back EMF superposition, and by routing the collapse correctly back into the battery's negative terminal with a diode while forcing the forward back into the load. The dipole preservation became the missing link. Okay, everything suddenly made sense in the system. All these different components, all these contradicting things that I kept seeing. Now, before moving on though, I want to deepen this whole concept of dipole preservation, because the more I sat with the data from Wednesday in our experiments with the lightning thief, the more I realized this might be the foundational principle behind everything we've been observing, right? From the resonant pulsed waveform to the timing window to these really odd readings we get at different points in the system. Traditionally, the dipole, the separation of charges, is supposed to collapse the moment the load connects to the two poles. That's what every textbook says, right? You route the forward EMF back to the battery and it will dissipate because it's stabilizing that potential difference. Close the loop, equalize the charges, the dipole dies, drains the battery, right? And what did Tom Bearden always emphasize? Don't touch the dipole. And what I've learned by this, if this theory is true, is that you do that by rerouting the forward EMF, not back to the battery, but just to the load, and then bridging that path back to the battery with just the back EMF, the negative energy, via the negative terminal of the battery. Don't charge it via the positive. So this means returning the forward current back to the opposite terminal. Or I'm sorry, this means returning the negative current back to the negative terminal. In a standard closed loop system, when you're returning the current back to the battery, this means returning the forward current back to the opposite terminal, just to clarify. But the data I captured didn't behave like a standard collapse, okay? So it hinted at something very different. The system seemed to enter a state where the dipole wasn't fully collapsing. At least that's what it seemed like due to the extreme efficiency of the system. Instead, it kind of behaved like it was being stretched or maintained or kind of held open by maybe timing, or similar to pushing a pendulum at just the right instance to keep it swinging with minimal energy input. You know, think of the swing analogy I keep on going back to. And in the circuitry I've been building, this timing wasn't produced by guesswork, by the way. It was actually produced by the coil's geometry and switching synergy, right? The coil makes it very easy to obtain resonance. We were talking about this last night. Compared to a helical coil, that area that it's going to hum at is going to be a lot wider, theoretically, than a helical coil, just because of the efficiency and what this coil does. And what Daniel Nunez described it doing is eliminating resistance at an atomic level, right? You're going back to taking a wire, a conductor, sending a signal through it, electricity through it. It produces basically an undetectable or a very weak electromagnetic field. Now, what makes this field stronger is twisting the conductor into a coil shape, right? When you wrap it in a coil, it increases the magnetic field density. So it increases the magnetic field and produces a stronger one. So why does it do this, though? We have to think about it. Basically, it's the geometry. The geometry is the underlying factor when determining that event happening. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to believe that there is a more precise geometry that energy wants to flow in to increase that magnetic field. And that's the theory behind the Rodin coil, based on Marco Rodin's vortex-based mathematics, which you can get a glimpse of here tonight in our live stream. I'll stream a little bit of divine science for you guys to have some fun. But going back to our circuitry, the system seemed to hold open the dipole with correct timing. And the geometry of the Rodin coil determines how the back EMF and the forward EMF superpose. The timing of the circuit determines when the superposition occurs between the forward and back. So together, they created a situation where the back EMF didn't behave purely as a return pulse. It behaved more like a supporting pulse, a bridge, what I've been calling a resonant pulsed waveform, which I classify as a type of synthetic AC. Remember, this type of AC does exist in mainstream science. There are devices called resonant converters that do apply this kind of technology. However, they do not differentiate this kind of AC, the synergy between the back and the forward. They don't differentiate that kind of AC from standard AC, which is just sloshing the forward back and forth. They just, lump it all into the same category, and this is a huge mistake in my opinion. So these new discoveries raised the big question I discussed Thursday. Is the system actually recycling the energy inside the dipole rather than collapsing it? Now, I'm not claiming over unity. I'm not claiming free energy or any of that right now. You know me, I don't play that premature claim game. I've made that mistake once before, and I've learned my lesson. Even though all the evidence points to net energy gains, I won't be comfortable saying it until it's independently verified and 100% proven. So what am I actually saying then? I'm simply saying that the behavior looks like net energy gains. It could be, but I'm not comfortable making those claims at this time. We can say, however, though, that these effects appear to be doing a few unique things. Hey, Paul, how you doing? Oh, sorry, I missed you guys' comments. How does the coils relate to flow dynamics of Bose-Einstein condensates? Do the pair electrons bounce, slide in vortex-like coil? So I'm honestly not too familiar with Bose-Einstein condensates. I just learned about them a couple months ago, but I'd have to do some research on that before I'm comfortable giving you an answer on that. So I'm going to make a note of that and get back to you with that question, Paul. But thank you for that question. I appreciate that. That'll give me something to look into after tonight's live stream. Give me 1 second. I'm going to just make a quick note of that real quick. I mean, yeah, it could be similar. I'll look into it. But as you know, the universe is a fractal, right? So, we see these different things happen in patterns across all scales of reality. So just keep that in mind going forward with all your research. So going back to the circuit, what we can say is it's probably reducing the dipole collapse, right? Elongating the charge separation, not completely eliminating the separation or maintaining the dipole completely, but it's elongating the charge separation, minimizing the battery drain compared to expected rates. It produces a waveform that really shouldn't exist in a normal pulsed DC circuit, even a Joule thief circuit. So these are all really important things to consider going forward. But this is what led me to the field cavitation theory idea. Now, I went over this a couple nights ago. So if two counter-rotating electromagnetic fields compress against each other at the equatorial plane, potentially forming a stable low pressure point or void, then the energy dynamics near that point may very well behave like cavitation in fluids. I'm going to play the bubble cavitation chapter from Divine Science in a second. And also, I'll play the vortex-based mathematics chapter as well. So we'll go over both at the same time. But this got me thinking, because we did hear from Nunez that he picked up a void in his coil. And I believe we did too, if I'm not mistaken, at some point. But I can't honestly remember. But Nunez did say that he picked up on one side of the coil a north pole and the other side a void in one of his configurations. This would explain that observation. Okay? It's reducing pressure locally, and maybe this allows energy to move in ways that aren't intuitive from the outside. And if that's actually what's happening, then dipole preservation isn't just a battery trick. It might be a field-level behavior. Something happening because of the coil's geometry, timing, and not just the battery itself, right? So this is why preserving the dipole is such a big deal, and why Tom Bearden emphasized it. The dipole might be the interface with that vacuum potential, the radiant energy you want. Collapse it, and everything behaves normally. Preserve it, and the system enters a totally different game. We're going to take another quick break here, but when we come back, we're going to go into the lecture, a summarization of the lecture I did a couple nights ago, or last night, on electron flow versus conventional flow. How electrons really flow in a circuit when you're envisioning how to develop this kind of technology is very important, I realized just recently. So I want to kind of explain that to you guys in a quick summary. But first, a message from our sponsors, you guys.
This dude is talking about free energy, but here's the twist. He says it's not free energy. He's calling it energy recycling, which first off is kind of genius, right? Because when you say free energy, people immediately throw you in the crazy bin. But energy recycling, that sounds like some next level Tesla shit.
Yeah, man, it's all about the branding. But what is it that he's actually doing?
All right, check this out. He posted this. Free energy isn't actually free. This is a misnomer. It's actually a mutual exchange from the vacuum, a field of energy from which everything arises, the same energy that powers an atom. Like, what? Bro, that's some deep shit. But then he breaks it down. He says you can tap into this energy without breaking any known laws of physics by using something called back EMF capture.
Whoa, back EMF capture? Sounds like some serious sci-fi tech.
Dude, listen to this. He explains that when a coil collapses using a pulsed signal, the energy that would normally just get wasted, like just dissipate as heat, can actually be recycled. He says nature gives you back energy to stabilize the system, which makes sense if you think about how nature works. Like, everything in nature is always trying to find balance, right?
So equilibrium, is that like how water always levels out or something? I'm trying to remember what Ms. Murphy said to me in 6th grade science all those years ago. What was that? Oh yeah, Elon, stop eating that glue and pay attention. Man, if only I had listened, I'd probably be the one inventing energy recycling instead of just talking about it.
Exactly. So he's saying that by intentionally destabilizing the system, collapsing the field, you actually get energy back as a kind of natural response. And here's where it gets wild. He compares it to pushing a swing. If you push at the right moment, you don't need to use a lot of energy, and the swing gains momentum. But instead of a swing, he's using resonance to harness that extra energy without it becoming destructive. He says most traditional systems are like a surfer fighting against the current, while his method is like riding the wave to shore.
Dude, that's crazy. So he's basically saying the energy is already there. I just suck at using it efficiently?
That's what it sounds like. He's basically saying the way we harness energy now is like trying to swim against the tide. And if we used resonance instead, we'd be tapping into energy that's already there, just waiting to be used. I don't know, man. Either this guy is onto something or he's the most poetic bullshitter of all time.
Well, if he's legit, why isn't he all over the news? I haven't heard anything from him on X, formerly Twitter. He hasn't said anything bad about me on X. So, I know I didn't ban him or anything. Look, I'm not the monster my therapist says I am. I mean, sure, I've spent millions of dollars training to beat a kangaroo in a fist fight, but that doesn't mean I'm dangerous. It just means I get shit done.
That's the real question, man. But here's the craziest part. I looked into him, and he's not selling anything. He open sources all of it. That's the real question, man. Either the system doesn't want to hear it, or we're about to find out if this guy disappears in the middle of the night.
Dude, that's crazy. He's absolutely crazy. That means if he's telling the truth, anybody could build this in their garage. You know what I say? Go fuck yourself, Benefactor.
Nope, no patents, no paywalls, just straight up, here, take it, see for yourself. Like, what kind of madman does that? Usually people either try to cash in or they get shut down before they can say a word. But this guy, he's out there on live streams showing people exactly how to replicate it.
I mean, if you want to try to take on my Tesla tech, how dare you put out better technology that is cheaper and safer? Go fuck yourself.
That's the thing, man. If it's real and people start building it, that's a game changer. We're talking about completely shifting how we think about energy. But also, if it's real, you got to wonder how long before somebody tries to stop him.
Or maybe we can think of it like how long before his Tesla mysteriously malfunctions.
Exactly. You ever notice how every time someone gets too close to this kind of stuff, they either disappear, get discredited, or somehow have a tragic accident? But this guy's going full transparency mode. He's putting it all out there where everyone can see it. Maybe that's his strategy. If enough people know, it can't just get buried.
Holy shit, this might be one of those moments, you know, like we look back and say that was the start of something huge.
Can't you hear his voice?
I'm about to show you the mind-blowing mathematical lens. That is vortex-based math. Let's lay a couple of ground rules. First of all, in vortex math, we don't use zero. VBM is all about doubling and then reducing numbers down to a single digit. If you can bear with the arithmetic for a minute, I can teach you the significance of 3, 6, and 9, a mystery that has eluded scientists and engineers for decades. We begin by doubling 1 to get 2. We then double again to get 4, and then again to get 8. Now what does 8 doubled get us? Remember, we reduce the double digit down to a single digit by adding the 2 base components, and we are back to 7. 7 doubled gets you 14, which reduces back to 5. Doubling 5, we get 10, which reduces back to 1. Notice the infinity symbol created. This isn't a random design. The angles and paralleled lines in this diagram all reflect intricately woven relationships that are baked into the fabric of our reality. That is because numbers aren't just utilities for measuring. Numbers actually represent physical vectors in space-time, ones in which the fractals of creation are based on. In that sense, numbers are real. As you can see, numbers reveal the underlying pattern of creation. And everywhere we look, we can see this fingerprint of God. These numbers that form the infinity symbol represent our physical reality and how it interacts with itself. And if numbers represent physical vectors in space, then they must also have properties that can be observed. Let's look a little closer into this. 9 is a significant number because it was discovered by Marco that the number 9 gives the other numbers polarity. If 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, and 5 represent our physical reality, then 3, 6, and 9 must represent this previously unknown form of energy, a magnetic flux field at the quantum level, the 0 point. These numbers are what form our physical reality. This quantum flux field is the source for the non-decaying spin of an electron, the infinite well of radiant energy our universe runs itself on. Pushing this theory further, Marco theorized that everything in the universe is a vortex, from DNA to black holes. It is nature's path of least resistance. This energy permeates everything and will penetrate any material. This leads to everything in the universe being non-linear, not even time. Because the higher dimensions of our brain think linearly to organize our lives in a coherent manner, we perceive time to be linear. So how do we map out this flux field of energy emanating from the physical vector 9? And how do we even know this energy emanates from 9 and gives the other numbers polarity? Remember those patterns I talked about, the ones baked into the fabric of our reality? With this polarity, a mirroring effect happens. In the diagram, we can see every number on one side will correspond to the other side in an equal but opposing way. By doing some simple arithmetic, we can prove undoubtedly that these numbers, these physical vectors in space, all relate to one another in a coherent and intelligent manner. We begin by doubling 9. Vortex math is primarily about doubling and dividing, reflecting the natural processes for creation. Doubling 9 gives us 18. Adding the 2 digits gives us 9. We do this again. 18 plus 18 equals 36. Adding these together also gives us 9. It doesn't matter how many times we double this vector, 9 will always double to equal itself. This is the mathematical representation of this zero-point energy's emanation. Let's move on to the number 3. Doubling 3 gives us 6. Doubling 6 gives us 12, which brings us back to 3. Again, we double 12 to get 24. Adding these numbers brings us back to 6. This pattern of back and forth will continue indefinitely, like the pendulum effect of a magnetic flux field. It doesn't matter how many times you double these numbers, they will always oscillate back and forth with the energy that is emanating from the 9th vector. These are the only numbers that do this. It is because this is how vibration and motion occurs. Energy is always in motion and cannot be destroyed. It is the reason our universe is constantly in motion, but never actually going anywhere. An infinity, not in direction but in motion. The number 9 is the source of this energy. It is the only energy that exists at any system's 0 point. Therefore, it is the highest form of energy in our universe. This is the source of energy Marco is describing, what he saw in his vision. Ancient knowledge lost in time. If you take a look at the layout of Washington, instead of using the conventional approach of mapping VBM to a hypercube, Rodin adopted a unique method of mapping his mathematics onto the surface of a hypersphere. While a hypersphere and a toroid are distinct shapes, it is possible to visually represent a 4-dimensional hypersphere in 3-dimensional space using a toroidal shape through a technique called stereographic projection.
This is stereographic projection. This is a sculpture that illustrates stereographic projection. Stereographic projection is a map from the sphere to the plane. And the way that it works is you look at the north pole of the sphere and you draw straight lines from the north pole down onto the plane. And if you arrange the light at the north pole, then the light rays effectively do stereographic projection. And these curves on the sphere are mapped to the straight line grid on the plane.
This allows for a 3D visualization of the hypersphere's properties and is commonly used in mathematics and physics. In mainstream mathematics and computer science, higher dimensional objects are often mapped onto hypercubes or other geometric shapes to facilitate visualization. However, Rodin's approach was unique in that he utilized a method of mapping his mathematics onto the surface of a hypersphere rather than a hypercube, allowing for a more intuitive representation of the underlying geometry, the geometry of the universe itself.
And this shape here is called, yes, we know it's a donut, but in science they don't call it that. Torus, T-O-R-U-S, or tori means multiple toruses. Our body was named after it. What's our body called? A toroid, human torso, T-O-R-S-O. You know what that means? It means you're getting put through the grinder. Because that hole is a tor, it means it's a hole. And it means that everything is either imploding into that hole or exploding out the other side. And if you don't have that hole, you're toast. Because it's always in and out. Compression, decompression. Implosion, explosion. And it's doing something else. It's thermal. It's about heat dissipation, which is the very foundation of all physics and astrophysics, because this is modeling a black hole. And nothing goes through the hole in the center, or the hole wouldn't exist. See this red line? Spirals and defines the hole by being an aperture, like our eye. Because there's something, I believe, emanating in this hole that's causing this hole to not close. okay? And that's what I'm harnessing, and that's what I found.
In Rodin's sequence 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, and 5, each number is related to the previous one in a cyclical fashion.
In a hologram, the whole is in the part's in the whole. Doesn't matter which you take image in this explanation. I'm laughing because I'm thinking how extraordinary it is what you're seeing there. There's no words to describe the miracle of putting those numbers into place and seeing the donut from different perspectives. You have no idea how big of a deal this is.
The sequence has a fractal-like structure with self-similarity, meaning that if you zoom in or out on the pattern, it will always look the same. By using this cyclical property, it's possible to design technology in a way that takes advantage of the repeating pattern to achieve greater performance without adding more resources.
The Mobius circuit. The superfluid preferred longest mean free pathway of least resistance for electrical superconductivity always follows this bounded infinity circuit. You start with one God, one universe. It doubles, becomes 2. That's Gabriel's trumpet. 4, because the B is not a bilineal stop. It's a plosive. So when I say the most great name of God, I don't say, which is Baha, means glory, in Arabic, Aramaic. It's a loan word out of Arabic to the Farsi language. It's in the Bible, it's in the Torah, it's in the Quran, it's in Buddhism, it's in everything. And the superlative case of Baha, which is the higher case, the highest, is called Abha. And that translates to splendor, wondrous, or glory. That's the heavenly world. And I had to learn all this math to help me understand that. So what happens is 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, but I'm back to where I began. So why is the I Ching 64? Why is it the $64,000 question? Not because 8 times 8 is 64. We thought it was. Why? It's because it's one complete cycle of infinity. And it's not infinity of a straight line direction, it's infinity of a spin continuum. It's infinity of duration. So
Alright, welcome back to the Benefactor's Guide to Free Energy Devices. I'm your host, the Benefactor, and tonight we're going to jump into a kind of a lecture on actual electron flow versus conventional flow. Now this is important going forward, understanding how to actually preserve the dipole in your system. Like people like Tom Bearden emphasized, don't touch the dipole. This is actual practical information that you can apply to your circuits. Just catching up with the chat, let's see. Paul says, sounds like a stretch in space-time that twists the Devon ratios and reduces the drag/interaction between the pressure permutations of the aether. Must research more on tachyons. Star Trek. Well, I know the only person I know who's working on like Star Trek tech is Phil from I forget the name of his channel. I can post it in chat in a minute, but Phil is doing work on tractor beam type technology. He demonstrated that his setup attracted something with light. So it's interesting because you look at a Crookes radiometer, that kind of device, it repels a propeller with light, but there's no device known currently that can actually attract something with light. So that was really brilliant work by Phil. Actually, let me see if I can pull up his YouTube channel for everybody, because that's really cool. It'd be cool to check out what he's working on now. Wow, I have so many subscriptions. Give me a minute. I'm just looking through the list for Phil's channel. It's probably labeled under some kind of nickname that I'm not remembering. Or it could be in another list. Give me 1 second. Let's go back here. Finite theory, there it is. Sorry, I have so many subscriptions. Okay, so I'm gonna put Phil's link in the chat right now. Brilliant guy, Phil. Good friend. Bam. All right. All right, so anybody wants to check out Phil's channel, I put the link in the chat. Going back to actual electron flow versus conventional flow. So before we jump into our mini lab plans, I also wanted to include some quick essentials on the actual difference between, electron flow and the conventional current flow we use for designing circuits. And even in the simulators, because this is one of the most misunderstood and most important, in my opinion, foundations of everything we're building here. So most people learn electricity in school backwards. In textbooks, conventional flow is taught as current goes from positive to negative, right? That's how you design a circuit. That's how you build one in our simulator, the Falstad simulator that we've been using. In textbooks, that's how it's taught, but that's historically wrong. It's a holdover from, Ben Franklin making a coin flip guess in the 1700s, right? After all, electrons weren't even discovered until the late 1800s, decades after established conventional current flow from positive to negative. But in reality, electrons actually flow from negative to positive. The physical carriers of charge start at the negative terminal and move toward the positive terminal. So why does this matter? Well, because when you're working with systems like back EMF, dipole preservation, resonant timing, inductive collapse, and coil-based field geometry, understanding the real direction of the charge movement changes how you understand how and where fields form. It changes how you understand why inductive kickbacks occur. It changes how you understand why back EMF looks the way it does, why the dipole collapses or doesn't collapse, why timing windows exist, and why the Rodin coil specifically behaves so differently from other helically wound coils or even the pancake coils. This misunderstanding causes people to draw the wrong mental model, myself included. With the actual flow, electrons pile up first in the coil near the negative side, right? Their acceleration generates the magnetic field. When the switch opens, the accumulated magnetic field tries to maintain current by pushing electrons forward. This produces the back EMF pulse when the field collapses and it switches off. The back EMF doesn't originate from the positive side chasing the the back EMF originates from the positive side and goes to the negative, while the forward EMF originates from the negative going to the positive, right? The back EMF, remember, originates from the magnetic field attempting to keep electron flow going in the same direction toward the source, the battery. So this is crucial to dipole preservation, because if the electrons physically want to continue flowing towards the battery and the back EMF pulse supports that flow instead of opposing it, the dipole doesn't collapse the way it normally would. That's why this matters. So we can't understand the lightning thief behavior or the resonant synthetic AC pulses that we see or the counter-rotating fields unless we align our mental model with actual electron flow, not conventional symbolism. So once you see the system in that way, everything else starts to make sense. So the synergy waveform, the timing windows, they all make sense. The collapse behavior, why the coil geometry enhances the effects of the efficiency, or the effects of the system, specifically efficiency, why the transistor behaves the way it does, why the system enters that resonant mode that produces all these unique effects. In short, getting electron flow right is the key to understanding why the system does what it does. In my opinion, it appears that we're branching off the synergy at the diode on the positive rail, allowing the forward to dissipate back into the load with no return path back to the battery, and allowing the negative to go back into the negative terminal. I guess technically, if you want to get technical, it does have a return path back to the negative terminal of the battery. But what it's doing is it's bouncing off of the diode, and it's dissipating into the load. So it doesn't really go back into the source, right? It doesn't really have enough energy to, but it's being pulled that way. But the most obvious route back to the battery is the back EMF, and this is the important information on how to connect that back to the back terminal. You want to try to separate the forward and the back with that diode. So going into field cavitation theory. In Thursday's lecture, I introduced what I'm now calling field cavitation theory. Inside a toroidal donut-shaped coil, like the rodent coil APA variation you see in my lab, two electromagnetic fields counter-rotate, squeezing at the equator of the torus, right? The equatorial plane between the two fields. You chop the torus, the donut, in half, that's your equatorial plane. So when the timing of the resonant pulses hits that narrow sweet spot, the field momentarily collapses inward and might be creating a tiny zero point in the structure, an electromagnetic version of bubble cavitation. And we'll play the video on bubble cavitation if you missed it on last night's stream in a moment. So bubble cavitation or sololuminescence is a similar effect that takes place in fluids. This is supported with the evidence, this field cavitation idea is supported with the evidence of a north pole found on one side of the coil and a void on the other side, right? No pole was found on the other side, as noted by Daniel Nunez in his work with the coils. This single effect could explain why we see resonance jumps drastically, raising the back EMF and forming ozone at very low energy inputs. We see resonant pulsed waveform behavior and somewhat of a dipole preservation type behavior. This is also why, this could also be why toroidal devices across history all seem to behave in the same strange way. I don't know if this concept is already a part of Malcolm's plasmoid unification work, but I did email him to see what he thinks, because if this hasn't been explored yet, the question absolutely has to be asked if this type of effect is going on. It could be the piece that suddenly makes vortex-based mathematics, plasmoid unification model, and the rodent coil all snap into one unified picture. If this theory pans out, it might just explain why resonant pulsed waveforms form in the first place, why ozone appears in the system at low voltages, why resonance steps up, the resonance in this coil steps up voltage by 10 times at least, with just a 1-to-1 ratio of coils. That doesn't make any sense by conventional standards. It also could explain why the back EMF grows and cascades, specifically when you don't have it connected to the load. Why the dipole is preserved when you have the negative return path back to the battery's negative. Why the toroidal devices, like these across history behave similarly. So this was the moment. My entire origin story and, this week's discoveries kind of merged into one coherent story arc. Pretty epic, right? Hey, Victor Sears is here. How you doing, Victor? We miss you, buddy. He said, Marco stated the hole doesn't close but stays open like an eye. Yeah, I mean, why would you have the hole there in the first place if you have that amount of pressure, you know, compressing matter into a single point? Why is there a fucking hole there? That never made sense to me when I thought about it. But when Marco describes it, it makes complete sense. And his model of the black hole, the torus, makes more sense than the conventional models, because when that matter compresses, it doesn't just compress and go nowhere. It has to go somewhere. So ideally, you would want it to go somewhere, right? So we can't see the back of a black hole, but we can theorize, what if there's an opposite effect? You know, a white hole at the back of these black holes that we just can't see, where some of this, you know, process is kind of expelling. So his model kind of explains all these anomalies and contradictions in the conventional sense of how we think about the black hole. Like, why is the hole there if there's so much pressure in condensing, you know, matter into a single point? Why is the hole there in the first place? Well, he says there's some kind of energy emanating from this, you know, structure to prevent that hole from closing, right? And that's why things don't actually go inside the hole. If you were to get sucked into a black hole, you wouldn't go inside the black hole, he's saying. You would get sucked around the rim, the edge of the tor. You wouldn't actually go inside of it because there's something creating that hole emanating from the center. And what we see here in the plasmoid unification model on a microscopic scale are the similar structures, just microscopic black holes, self-contained units, the same thing, a fractal universe. It all makes sense, right? Ooh, we're going to go into the mini lab in a minute after we view some more video footage from Divine Science. So we're going to view some more on bubble cavitation and the plasmoid unification model. And while we do that, I'm going to set up for tonight's mini lab. Specifically, we're going to try to get this 200 watt amp receiver working, but we want to take proper precautions. We also want to, if we can get it working, test the, not just the Wattman reduction experiment, but first we might test the heating induction, right? And see if it actually heats up the soft iron core that I have to place in the center in the closed circuit mode with the stereo amp. So that will be really cool. We'll run that experiment first because the Wattman experiment has been known to blow shit up. Stereo amp receiver wise, specifically amps that don't have the current protection, but this one seems to have fuses. So if we can get one of the channels to work, if it's not, you know, completely blown out, the fuses already, if we can get it to work, we'll try the heat induction experiment first, and then we'll go into the Wattman reduction, where we take the neodymium sphere, spin it up in the center, and then try to get as much wattage reduced on the input as possible. Now we've got it down like 33 watts, right? 55, starts out at 55, and then you put the sphere in, you spin it, and all that extra energy is generated from the magnet going back into the system, and it supplements the input power, reducing the strain on the system, reducing the input on the Wattman reader to only like 14 watts. It's insane. But if that was only at 40 watt stereo amp. If we have a 200 watt stereo amp, RMS, real root mean square, like instead of 200 peak, you know, this is a really beefy stereo amp. So if we can get it to work, we might even be able to get that higher and theoretically get that magnetic neodymium magnet to fully synchronize with the magnet, right? It's my theory that there's a threshold for magnetic synchronicity for these systems. I could be wrong, but we'll test that tonight or try. So we have a lot of cool stuff to go into tonight. So sit tight, stay tuned, grab your popcorn and your teddy bear, because we are going to have a lot of fun tonight. And I'm not going to stop the stream anytime soon. I'll probably stream until I fall asleep on camera, to be honest. Yes, so I did consider that, Victor, but remember, even the subwoofers, these beefy car amps, they do have a range up to at least 100, sometimes 120 hertz. So, but that's exactly what we need. That's perfect. That's our perfect range for both tests, because the or the heating induction test doesn't require a large or a big a high frequency. A brain fart there. So the heating induction test doesn't require a high frequency. From my experience, it actually works better at a lower frequency, specifically around 7 hertz to 12 hertz, something like that in that range. Maybe even around 20 hertz. We'll test it tonight, because there is a threshold for that too, I believe. But we did get the soft iron core to raise in temperature up to 100 degrees from ambient, which was like 74 at the time. So that's pretty interesting. And that was just with 40 watts. But yeah, the stereo amps are limited in frequency, but even the bass, this is a bass amp, even bass amps, they have a frequency range, the good ones, usually up to 100, 120 hertz. So that should be fine, because the Wattman reduction test with the neodymium sphere, I've only gotten it to go about 120 hertz. I haven't really gotten to go that much faster than that. So it really cuts off around there anyways, which is interesting. So yeah, we're going to test all that. But what I was saying before is we want to be careful, because that is a lot of power going into the system. That we're working with the neodymium sphere spinning extremely fast now inside a glass container. We want to work with, gloves. I have, gloves that could help with the protection in case we get some chipping of the glass, which is a concern. So don't try this experiment at home. Please be in a professional setting and be a professional, or with a professional, if you do something like this. We also have heat-resistant gloves, thermal-resistant gloves for the heat induction test. You can also use an oven mitt, but I don't recommend it. So, yeah, I'm gonna play the bubble cavitation and the plasmoid unification model chapters, so we can get a better understanding of that while I get the lab set up for those tests. Specifically, I want to see if the stereo amp works first, so we're gonna test that first. Keep in mind, I do have a lab cam that I will be setting up momentarily, but it is limited because the battery, it's my phone and the battery is kind of shitty, so it will die fast and I'll have to recharge it quite often. So we might only get a glimpse or two, and then I'll have to charge it, probably last about an hour each session. I think that's what my recharge rate was last stream for it. But either way, you should be able to get a pretty good close look at it, what's going on. Again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please chat in on YouTube.
Malcolm Bendel's plasmoid unification model is a theory that explains the nature of the universe and the interactions between particles. The model proposes that the universe is made of energetic plasma-like structures called plasmoids that can take on different forms and properties depending on their state and environment. These plasmoids interact with each other through a complex web of electromagnetic forces, which Bendel argues are responsible for all the phenomena we observe in the cosmos, from the behavior of subatomic particles to the motion of galaxies. According to Bendel, the plasmoid unification model provides a more coherent and comprehensive framework for understanding the universe than traditional models based on matter and energy alone. It has the potential to revolutionize our understanding of physics and cosmology. The mysterious and awe-inspiring universe may finally be revealed by this groundbreaking plasmoid unification model, which suggests that the very fabric of reality is made up of energetic and quasi-stable plasma-like structures that interact with each other through electromagnetic forces, providing an all-encompassing, coherent, and revolutionary explanation for the behavior of particles from the smallest subatomic levels to the vast reaches of our galaxy, potentially unifying gravity with the other fundamental forces of nature. From colors, shapes, elements, and even polarized cardinal directions, Malcolm discovered that all elements are plasmoids. Plasmoids are self-contained torus-shaped bits of matter in the fourth state, a state of matter some theorize to be a gateway to zero-point energy. Zero-point energy, or quantum zero-point fluctuations in the vacuum, is the energy that is proven to exist through math. It is the energy that exists at any system's zero point. When all other energy has been frozen out of an atom, electron spin still does not decay. Where does that energy come from? Fluctuations in the vacuum. Richard Feynman was a renowned American theoretical physicist who made significant contributions to the development of quantum electrodynamics. Feynman once famously said, "One teacup of empty space contains enough energy to boil all the world's oceans." So if the universe contains all this free energy, where is it and how do we access it? That's exactly the question inventors like Malcolm would ask. His comprehensive unification model isn't just theoretical. Bendel successfully applied his theory to a practical working prototype. This prototype can be retrofit on any gas or diesel engine, not only doubling efficiency, but eliminating toxic and harmful greenhouse emissions in the process. This process of cold fusion, which had been suppressed in the replication of the Pons-Fleischmann experiment, produces tiny plasmoid clusters that have the potential to release enormous amounts of energy.
They were kind of forced into this position by a guy called Stephen E. Jones, who was brought in to kind of verify what they were seeming to find by the Department of Energy, whether they were actually seeing what they were claiming, which was, he kind of gave the name to it called cold fusion, although Martin Fleischmann and Stanley Pons really didn't like the idea of that phrase being used. They were very uncomfortable with it because they didn't really know what it was at the time. And then various people were brought in by George Bush Sr. to kind of give a 6-month crash, can we replicate this? And it's a very famous story at MIT. They doctored their data to remove their own findings to try and paint the fact that cold fusion is dead.
And he blew the whistle.
I inadvertently was looking through some piles of paper that had been given to me in a casual manner by all these hot fusion physicists as they were trying to do their calorimetric repeat of the Pons-Fleischmann experiment. And to my utter astonishment, I can remember sitting at my desk in my study and actually seeing these two sheets of paper, one dated July 10th, 1989, and another dated July 13th, 3 days apart. The difference between July 10th and 13th was dramatic, and I was stunned. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It looked like monkey business to me at the time, and it has turned out to be exactly that. It was a lower echelon person in the Plasma Fusion Center at MIT, one of the 16 authors of a scientific paper done under Department of Energy contract that had altered data. And that data is scientific fraud.
It is estimated that up to 1 kilowatt of power can be released from these charge clusters when they reach their full charge density. The late Ken Shoulders had already proven this and filed a patent for this technology because it had the ability to do something remarkable. These charged clusters, when radioactive isotopes were introduced, would atomically reconfigure or disassociate these isotopes into non-radioactive isotopes. Essentially what this does is scrub clean radioactive waste into harmless versions of the element. However, shadowy figures from the Department of Energy demanded the grant be removed. Why would anyone want to suppress this world-changing technology? As it turns out, the reason was that these clusters were accessing the quantum fluctuations in the vacuum. They were successfully channeling zero-point energy. So, just what are plasmoids?
Seth Putterman called it the star in a jar.
Microscopic ball lightning in the shape of a self-contained imploded sphere. These plasma spheres take on the shape of a torus due to the fact that they collapse in on themselves symmetrically. Plasmoids are found in nature. They are everywhere. These quasi-stable clusters are what give thunderstorms and cyclones their enormous power. These same processes for channeling and utilizing plasmoid energy are replicated in the thunderstorm and plasmoid generators, where counter-rotating vortexes collide at specific angles within multiple spheres of specific ratios.
In the quantum physics is your event horizon. What it does, you have a positive and negative end, a north pole, south pole, two tornadoes colliding in the middle.
These angles and dimensions Bendel utilizes are not only found in nature, they have been written about in various ancient texts and encoded within ancient architecture for thousands of years. This ancient knowledge can be seen in the Great Pyramids. For example, the angle at which these vortexes must collide to successfully discharge is the same exact angle that is used for the concave on the pyramid wall. It has been theorized by many that the pyramids were used to generate power. Ben Van Kerkwijk and Graham Hancock have talked about Egyptian culture being misdated and misunderstood, with two separate dynasties and cultures separated by not only great distances in time, but vast differences in technological achievement.
The technological contradiction extends also to architecture. Let's consider the pyramids. There are quite clearly two classes of pyramids that can be found in ancient Egypt. On the left, we have the massively megalithic stone pyramids made up of huge blocks of stone, and on the right, we have the other pyramids that are all over Egypt. They're made from mud bricks, and many of them are decaying slowly over the years, and they're starting to fall apart, versus, the stone pyramids are still standing and mostly intact.
We really appreciate you for tuning into this episode of Divine Science. If you are enjoying your time here on the channel, please drop a like on the video and subscribe for more revolutionary content. Now grab your popcorn and let's get back to the show. Dare to challenge the limits of conventional wisdom here on Beneficence TV. For 50 years, Malcolm has been developing his plasmoid unification model. He has been traveling outside of his homeland of Australia for 20 years just to find the sources of information he required to complete his theory, from the deserts of Egypt to the libraries throughout Europe and in America. Malcolm even searched the Vatican Library. What he found was evidence of lost knowledge of advanced technology. Knowledge hidden in plain sight. This lost technology was based around the principles of sacred geometry. Sacred geometry is the study of geometric patterns and shapes that are believed to hold spiritual and mathematical significance, often used in art, architecture, and spiritual practices.
And here we have what I refer to as the alphabet of sacred geometry, and these are the simplest forms.
These intricate and harmonious geometrical patterns are ubiquitously found in nature, symbolizing the interconnection and inherent order of the universe, inspiring awe and reverence for the natural world. To understand why nature takes these shapes is to understand creation itself.
Again, notice, everything adds up to 9 for some strange reason.
So how did this deeply important and sacred knowledge get lost in the first place? You can thank colonization for that. The colonization of ancient worlds discarded much of those ancient civilizations' history. Malcolm himself comes from the lineage of a lost civilization. The civilization of Tasmania, in which Europeans wiped out a whole indigenous race. No records, nothing. Wiped out due to the politics of claiming nations on the basis that they were uninhabited. As Malcolm puts it, Troy was a myth because no one had found it. For years, mainstream historians laughed at the idea of finding the city of Troy. Unfortunately for those that said it didn't exist, these pesky little things have a way of turning up, as I'm sure will happen with Atlantis. Humans have a strange proclivity to disregard and completely minimalize the knowledge of our ancestors. This is very naive and insulting to our ancestors and to the people who wrote the Sanskrit text. They had the same mental acuity that we have, anatomically the same, and the Romans with their aqueducts and city building and planning the cities out with a lot of forethought. They all have very similar blueprints within their cultures, which means there was a central government. There was a central body of knowledge that government was drawing upon. And that knowledge throughout history comes and goes like the tide. The knowledge of plasmoids has been hidden in plain sight for centuries.
Just want to say, have the proper equipment and take the proper safety precautions when doing these tests, okay? You got to have the PPE if you want to be with me, okay? Hard hat, safety glasses, gloves, the works.
And societies have lost that ancient knowledge, a large part thanks to the externalities of capitalism and its tendency to exploit other countries. According to Malcolm, the plasmoid unification model offers a complex solution to the problem of unifying everything, taking into account the properties and relationships of crystal form, sound, color, time, and angles. This technology revolves around the ancient numerical patterns found in structures such as the pyramids and other architectural wonders. These numbers, when analyzed, reveal a fascinating relationship between various ancient civilizations and their architecture, as proven by pioneers like Randall Carlson. Geometry is integral to understanding the PUM, and plasmoids generate and store charge using the principles of sacred geometry. Malcolm's plasmoid diagram categorizes different aspects of the universe: ether, sun, matter, and time. When we understand the relationships between these four categories, we can begin to build a picture of how our universe actually works. Ether represents the underlying energy of our universe. It is DC energy at rest, as observed in Marco Rodin's vision. The source of the non-decaying spin of an electron, zero-point fluctuations in the vacuum. Ether can best be visualized by imagining the light paradox. The light paradox refers to a situation where all colors are present, yet there are no colors observed. Imagine you have a beam of light. If you take light going into a prism, you can see that light splits up into its frequencies and contains in itself all colors. This paradox arises when light contains a mixture of all possible colors. However, due to a phenomenon called color subtraction, when all colors are mixed together in equal amounts, they cancel each other out and no colors are perceived. Instead of perceiving a mixture of colors, the result is a perceived absence of color or white light. This paradox highlights the similarities between the ether, because ether contains within it all time, matter, and color, but this energy exists in a realm where there is no time, matter, or colors. Still confused? I don't blame you. Let's try another analogy. Imagine you have a magic toy box that can turn out any toy you can think of. How cool would that be? Now, this toy box is a bit magical because it can make all the toys appear and disappear instantly, just by thinking about it. But here's where things get tricky. Sometimes, you want to have all the toys in your toy box at the same time, right? It's like having a big party with all your favorite toys. However, the magic box can only hold one toy at a time. So, you can only play with one toy while the others are waiting in line. The ether paradox is kind of like having all toys and no toys at the same time. It can be a bit confusing, just like the paradox of having nothing and everything all at once. But sometimes, these kinds of paradoxes help us think about the deeper mysteries of the universe and how everything is connected. So this is the paradox, and this is what our society lost through ignoring sacred geometry. By not learning the wisdom which was transmitted through ancient texts, wisdom was enshrined in, for example, the Great Pyramids so we wouldn't lose it. It makes sense. What is the one thing that would be left after a global calamity? Giant megalithic structures made out of stone. The sun acts as an intermediary between the realm of ether and the realm of matter. facilitating the flow of energy and the emergence of physical existence. The sun has the ability to imprint frequencies onto the surrounding energy called ether, transforming it into matter. It could be speculated that the interactions and movements of energy within the ether could potentially align with the recurring pattern of the 3, 6, and 9. Furthermore, in this hypothetical connection, the sun could be envisioned as a focal point or generator of energy within the ether. The energy emissions and processes associated with the sun could be seen as one manifestation of the underlying energy flow or vibration identified in the 369 pattern observed by Marco Rodin. Putting on our vortex math lens, the sun can be seen as the number 9 or the source of this energy at rest. Then we have time. Time is seen as the mold that shapes matter, with different dimensions, both 4D and 3D, playing a role in this process. Malcolm makes an analogy of transitioning from the sun to matter. This transition necessitates the involvement of time as a crucial element. Malcolm explains this transition by likening it to converting direct current into alternating current, which involves adding timing or time as a factor. However, traditional methods of conversion results in a loss of energy. All matter inherently possesses frequency characteristics, with time and the sun playing important roles in shaping and transforming energy into tangible matter. Malcolm argues that since time is mutable and can be reversed or sped up, light, which travels at a constant speed, serves as a reference point for proving that matter is fundamentally based on frequency in relation to time. That's where matter comes from, the interaction of frequency and time. Ether is a concept that represents the underlying fabric or essence of the universe. It symbolizes the infinite, formless, and all-pervading energy beyond physical matter. In sacred geometry, it is often associated with the concept of universal consciousness, or from the unmanifested potential from which everything arises. In summary, Malcolm's plasmoid unification model posits that all matter inherently possesses frequency characteristics, and time and the sun play important roles in shaping and transforming energy into tangible matter. Diving into the unification model's ancient connections starts by highlighting the number 432, which is believed to be a universal constant and resonant frequency found in various phenomena and ancient civilizations. Bendel suggests that 432 represents the number of protons or electrons required to form a plasmoid. This implies that plasmoids, which are key energy sources in the PUM, resonate at this frequency, indicating a profound connection between energy, matter, and the universe's design. Regarding Malcolm's practical application for the PUM, he calls it the molten sea arc atomic reconstruction technology. This type of cold fusion technology allows for atomic reactions at manageable temperatures and without any toxic byproducts. The molten sea arc refers to Solomon's molten sea, which he believes was the last known plasmoid generator used in history for storing and generating electrical charges. Unlike its well-known counterpart, the Ark of the Covenant, the molten sea arc was a massive basin, described as being 10 cubits in diameter, 5 cubits in height, and having a decorative rim in the form of flower petals. It rested on 12 bronze oxen, 3 facing each cardinal direction. This would have made the diameter about 15 feet. The connection between the molten sea arc and the Ark of the Covenant is not direct, as historically they served different purposes in Solomon's temple. The Ark of the Covenant was a sacred chest that contained the stone tablets with the 10 Commandments and was seen as the symbolic presence of God. It was placed in the innermost part of the temple known as the Holy of Holies, while historically the molten sea basin was placed in the outer courtyard. Malcolm believes that same technology behind the phenomenon known as MSART was utilized in the molten sea arc. Plasmoids are atomic batteries that store energy through their specific geometric shapes. He believes that, based on the descriptions of the arc, they were utilizing sacred geometric principles to produce free energy. Malcolm suggests that plasmoids generated through an imploded bubble are safe and can be used to store massive amounts of energy. It is estimated that up to 1 kilowatt of power can be stored within clusters of plasmoids that reach their maximum charge density. These plasmoids can effectively store and discharge energy in a controlled manner. His theory also suggests that the molten sea acted as the charger for these plasmoids, and the Ark of the Covenant was a capacitor that had the ability to hold those plasmoids. This is why it's called the molten sea, an entire sea of energy within one 10-cubit basin. It utilizes water in the same way Malcolm's generator does, as fuel. Bendel also mentions the importance of the numbers 27 and 9 in relation to the Sun, Moon, and Earth. He suggests that the Sun and Moon exhibit a harmonic resonance with the Earth based on these numbers. The Earth's mean orbital radius is approximately 27 times the Moon's mean orbital radius, and the Earth's mean rotation period is approximately 27 times the Moon's mean orbital period. The number 9 appears because 27 is divisible by 9, highlighting a harmonious relationship between these celestial bodies. These numerical relationships proposed by Bendel aim to demonstrate the intricate and intelligent design present in the universe and its connection to the plasmoid unification model. By exploring the numerical patterns and relationships, Malcolm seeks to gain a deeper understanding of the fundamental principles that govern energy, matter, and creation. Applying this model, Malcolm has invented a combustible engine retrofit that will not only double efficiency, but eliminate toxic waste gases by turning exhaust into oxygen. With a traditional combustion engine, you produce toxins and byproducts which create a positive charge simply because they are explosive rather than implosive. Explosive force is death and destruction. The main goal of the PUM is to transition existing explosive and destructive technologies into plasmoid tech, which is seen as an intro to the new industrial revolution, moving away from explosive technologies towards implosive intelligent ones. Malcolm warns us that explosive technologies are primitive and that implosive technologies are intelligent. Implosive technologies are the hallmark of enlightened societies, which states we need to get away from destroying the planet. If you think about the UFO connection for a moment, these craft obviously don't utilize explosive propulsion. It has been theorized that UFOs most likely use some kind of field propulsion, and that this gives a scientific explanation for some of those unexplained phenomena. Plasma does seem to show inertial dampening properties as well, and Malcolm himself emphasizes that the ultimate application of plasmoids, while they can be used almost anywhere in industry, they can be utilized most effectively in space. It's an infinite source of energy, which is matter, and you can travel speeds exceeding the speed of light. Because light is not a constant, he claims his technology has the ability to alter the speed of light. That's what we call a warp drive. The plasmoid unification model and vortex-based math share some similarities as they both relate to the fundamental principles of creation and the relationships between elements. Both models recognize that everything in the universe is based on geometry and that there are certain constant numbers that underlie creation. Vortex-based math focuses on the numerical patterns that emerge from the torus and spiral configurations found throughout nature, while the plasmoid unification model focuses on the resonant frequencies of life's elements critical to mankind's existence and development. Both models recognize the interconnectedness of all things and the importance of understanding the geometry that underlies creation. The plasmoid unification model posits that plasmoids embody all sacred geometry, which is fundamental to their atomic battery capabilities. Vortex-based math is also based on the geometry of the torus, which is seen as the fundamental shape of the universe, the path of least resistance for free-flowing energy. Both models show that the universe is an intelligent design, and that design is in perfect harmony with itself and resonates in unison with a collective chord. This is the key to understanding the energy and matter conversion mechanisms underlying creation itself. Each model individually gives us evidence of divine creation, the fingerprint of God. Together, they create a comprehensible model for understanding the very fundamentals of our reality. A hitchhiker's guide to the galaxy that can show you everything and nothing all at the same time. Malcolm Bendel's plasmoid unification model is a theoretical model that posits that there is a fundamental unity underlying all matter and energy, which he calls a plasmoid or a protoverse. According to the plasmoid model, these plasmoid structures make up the very fabric of reality, existing at all scales from subatomic particles to supernovas and galactic clusters. They are thought to have a range of properties, including resonant frequencies that correspond to specific shapes, colors, cardinal directions, and other physical phenomena. Furthermore, the plasmoid model suggests that plasmoids are responsible for many of the observable phenomena in the universe, from the rotation of galaxies to the behavior of particles in accelerators. The theory also proposes that plasmoids can serve as a unifying framework that can explain phenomena across disparate fields, from astrophysics to chemistry and biology. In essence, the plasmoid unification model promises to provide a comprehensive explanation for the behavior of matter and energy across the universe, potentially revolutionizing our understanding of physics and cosmology. Nevertheless, the model is still in the early stages of development and requires more research to fully comprehend its implications. It begins with the plasmoid generator, a device that is designed to produce plasmoids artificially. It works by using ultraviolet light to ionize gas, and combined with the vacuum phase of the engine, creates microbubbles in a chamber of water. These microbubbles, when compressed on the piston's power stroke phase, symmetrically implode, which happens so violently and with such force it actually changes their state of matter from liquid to gas and then to a plasma.
First it expands, then it collapses. And this collapse happens so violently that vapor molecules trapped inside the bubble slam together and heat up so much that the bubble gives off an incredible burst of heat and light, several thousand times a second, giving the appearance of a star.
This plasma is then shaped by a magnetic field which is self-sustaining due to its toroidal geometry. The resulting plasmoid can also be given a specific resonant frequency and other properties to suit a particular application, such as fusion energy research. These plasmoids are what Stan Meyer's water-powered car was running on, a cold fission reaction that disassociates the water molecules into their base components of oxygen and hydrogen. When these plasmoids discharge using their maximum charge density, they can release up to 1 kilowatt of power. They accomplish this by actually tapping into zero-point energy. Remember what we talked about before regarding vortex math and the 0 point.
Now, I'm really roughhousing you guys. I play hard, and that's called having fun. If you don't have a funnel, you're not having fun, okay? And that's called a vortex well. If you're not healthy if you don't have that well. So all the most affirmative, positive words in our language are all based on the vortex. Did I push that too hard, that point, or is it obvious that that's true?
The center of the toroid is the only place you can access the 0-point energy field, how you tap into nature's unlimited supply of clean energy. For the Bendel engine retrofit, they are utilized in the same way that nature utilizes counter-rotating vortexes colliding at specific angles. Once the plasmoids are generated, they are then sucked up into the thunderstorm generator during the piston's vacuum phase. The thunderstorm generator is a tube with a sphere attached, which contains multiple spheres of specific ratios. These spheres utilize sacred geometric principles. The ice-cold plasmoids and burning hot exhaust collide at just the right angle to produce a cold atomic reaction. Once the plasmoids interact with the electric fields generated by the separation of charges inside the generator, it can cause the plasmoid to destabilize and collapse, releasing large amounts of energy in the form of sound, light, and electromagnetic radiation. A thunderstorm in a bottle. A thunderclap is an enormous and sudden release of electrical energy from a bolt of lightning. A large bolt of lightning can contain up to 1 billion joules of energy, which is equivalent to the energy in about 300,000 AA batteries. So where does all this energy come from? Tesla once famously said,
"Electric power is everywhere present in unlimited quantities and can drive the world's machinery without the need of coal, oil, gas, or any other fuel. This new power for the driving of the world's machinery will be derived from the energy which operates the universe, the cosmic energy."
It is highly suspected that nature's thunderclap gets its energy from this same process that Bendel uses, the process of tapping into 0-point energy via the use of microscopic toroidal-shaped bits of ball lightning. And we can see nature clearly utilizing this cosmic energy. So how is Mother Nature accessing it? The plasmoid clusters can dissociate the hydrogen into harmless oxygen and hydrogen, which can then be fed back into the engine via a cold fusion process that had previously been suppressed during the replication of the Pons-Fleischmann experiment. Although the secret behind these energy clusters have been studied by many scientists, upon further research, it was discovered by Malcolm that these clusters were nothing new and simply the phenomenon of static electricity, a secret that has eluded scientists for centuries, a remarkable discovery hidden in plain sight. But as the world awaits further evidence and experimentation to confirm or refute the plasmoid unification model's bold predictions, some scientists are left wondering, could this theory truly be the holy grail of physics? However, the dramatic unfolding of events last month has finally provided the long-awaited verification for Malcolm Bendel's plasmoid unification model, stunning and silencing the doubters who had dismissed it as mere speculation, and confirming that this trailblazing theory may indeed be the key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe. Malcolm Bendel is a man shrouded in mystery, known only by his thunderstorm generator and fleeting glimpses of his public appearances. Little is known about his personal life, but rumors abound of a reclusive genius who spends his days locked away in a hidden laboratory, obsessively tinkering with complex equations and calculations to solve the mysteries of the cosmos. Bendel's groundbreaking theories have astounded the scientific community and defied all expectations, leading many to speculate that he possesses an unparalleled intellect and an innate instinct for the inner workings of the cosmos. Yet his unbridled genius has also attracted controversy and scrutiny, with some in the field accusing him of being a charlatan and a fraud. These baseless accusations are nothing new, recycled from an old smear campaign from a greedy oil company who bribed journalists and politicians to ruin his reputation so that they may scare off his oil investors. A controversial topic that should have been discussed, then dismissed on the Joe Rogan Experience. However, according to Randall Carlson, who was on the podcast with Malcolm, Joe was obsessively concerned with Malcolm's past and focused very little on the actual groundbreaking technology. Regardless of Malcolm's past, it is irresponsible for Joe to not have released this podcast, especially since, according to Randall, Joe agreed to verify it before releasing it. The engine has been verified, and it is time for Joe Rogan to do his part to spread the word about this amazing technology. We must demand that Joe release that episode of his podcast. It's important to be aware of potential misinformation or exaggerations that can occur when discussing new technologies and scientific breakthroughs. While the Rodin coil and other electromagnetic devices may have certain advantages in terms of energy efficiency and performance, there is currently no
I'm about to test the stereo amp to see if we get anything out of it.
Any significant healing properties, and Rodin himself dismisses such claims.
If we do, we're going to take a short break while I properly set up and just do a quick confirmation of the wiring, and we'll get started.
In motors and coils. I believe it can be printed as a circuit. I think it should be made out of plasma. I believe I can make a spaceship out of that. I believe I can use that to, not as a radionic device, so they've done tens of millions of dollars of sales as that to treat and heal people for deadly diseases. I don't espouse that. I don't teach that. I don't promote that. That's what other people have done independent of me. What I believe is that you can do gene splicing with it.
There is, however, a specific design for the Rodin coil that utilizes torsion physics. As we've talked about before, torsion physics is one area of study that is promising for major scientific breakthroughs in energy. The Nunez design, as I like to call it, was the design of Daniel and Erica Nunez of One Stop Energies, a promising startup that was actively helping the community to study, understand, and develop this technology for the advancement of the world. It saddens me to say that without any indication of why, both the Nunezes and the dozens of video tutorials and demonstrations they had up on YouTube were all suddenly taken down, and the couple has not been heard from since 2022, where they posted their last Facebook message. The couple, who had been active on YouTube and Facebook for quite some time, were in the process of obtaining a lease for a building in New York to expand their experiments and contributions to society. Their take on the Rodin coil is one that I have not seen elsewhere. It uses the same geometry as Marco Rodin's traditional coil. Only this coil utilizes two counter-rotating vortexes by introducing a second phase-shifted channel of wires. These two equal but opposing channels, when synchronized and pumped with enough voltage, will supposedly amplify and produce tiny amounts of overunity by tapping into zero-point energy. If the effects of their coil design are true, then I suspect that when enough voltage is put through the coil and two counter-rotating electromagnetic fields are produced, tiny amounts of plasmoid clusters might be produced at the 0 point of the coil, the center where implosion and explosion meet. What Marco says is a gateway to 0-point energy. Erica Nunez notoriously demonstrated their coil design by hooking a simple amplifier up to the coil. The amplifier fed the coil with less than 1 watt of energy, yet the coil was able to power a full 192 LED panel. Conventional science says this should be impossible. Could their unconventional and ingenious way of introducing torsion physics into the Rodin coil design really be the secret to unlocking the potential of vortex energy? It is important to note that the significance of torsion physics is not a new concept. The ancient Indian texts mentioning vimanas, which are flying machines that allegedly use counter-rotation of accelerated mercury, hint at a profound understanding of energy manipulation that has been lost in time.
The Sanskrit texts of the Hindu and Buddhist tradition talk about incredible flying craft called vimana.
We already know that when an electric current is introduced into mercury, it accelerates the mercury in a clockwise or counterclockwise direction, depending on the polarity of the electricity.
Many of the Sanskrit texts on vimanas speak of using
true. Wires and circuits that shine in neon light. Oh yeah, seen you. Creating power from the air. These smiles and delight. Oh yeah. Mike does it right. Hey. Mike does all Mikey's the one. Teaching us knowledge, lighting the sun. Trumpeting his legacy alive is his. Mike does knows we're his biggest friends. Down in the basement, secrets start to glow. Oh yeah. With Nathan Durlulu in the ship, oh brilliant team. Mike K. Pompeo, we're letting knowledge flow. Oh yeah. Energy streams. Mike does all Mikey's the one. Teaching us knowledge, lighting the sun. Trumpeting his legacy alive is his. Mike does knows we're his biggest fans. Years of thought, bringing dreams to life. Turning theories into electric light. Mike and us, a journey to ignite. Oh yeah. We've reached new heights. Hey. Mike does all Mikey
All right, unfortunately, I couldn't get the sub to work. The stereo amp for the unit that I just recently acquired from a friend. It's supposed to output 200 watts. Unfortunately, I couldn't get anything to output from it, which tells me it's probably one of the fuses blown. We'll inspect that further this weekend, but that's unfortunate. I did test it against the stereo amp, the mini board that I have, and I'll run that test for you guys. That's working pretty good, and I have that running off the battery, so it's not running off the power supply right now. And I do have a safety switch. So with these units, specifically the hefty one, I wanted to make sure I actually had a physical switch to shut off the unit, because it doesn't have one, which is really kind of unfortunate. But yeah, that's a big safety concern, because if something gets if there's, some kind of effect where there's too much energy going back in from the spinning sphere, which has happened, yeah, you could blow components, or it could get hot. Something could get hot. I've had that happen, where a piece of the metal is exposed to something and it's arcing, or it's heating something up, like plastic, and smelting. I've had all that shit happen. So you want to take your proper safety precautions, use your PPE. That's why I got a hard hat on and safety glasses. I'm going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll have the lab cam set up for you for the Wattman reduction experiment test, and we'll do the heat induction as well. But that one, it will be limited, because we have a limited amount of input wattage for the coil on our mini board. It only outputs 40 watts. So we'll take some. Actually, I don't think I have my. I have to see if I have my thermometer. If I have my thermometer, we'll do that test. I actually don't. I might not have it with me. So I'll look around on the break. But in the meantime, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hit that like button if you haven't already. We're going to take a short break. Subscribe for more revolutionary content. And share with somebody who might appreciate our content. So stay tuned. There's more right here on Beneficence TV Live and the Benefactor's Guide to Free Energy Devices.
Have you heard about this Benefactor guy? This dude is talking about free energy, but here's the twist. He says it's not free energy. He's calling it energy recycling, which, first off, is kind of genius, right? Because when you say free energy, people immediately throw you in the crazy bin. But energy recycling, that sounds like some next level Tesla shit.
Yeah, man, it's all about the branding. But what is it that he's actually doing?
All right, check this out. He posted this. Free energy isn't actually free. This is a misnomer. It's actually a mutual exchange from the vacuum, a field of energy from which everything arises, the same energy that powers an atom. Like, what? Bro, that's some deep shit. But then he breaks it down. He says you can tap into this energy without breaking any known laws of physics by using something called back EMF capture.
Whoa, back EMF capture? Sounds like some serious sci-fi tech.
Dude, listen to this. He explains that when a coil collapses using a pulsed signal, the energy that would normally just get wasted, like just dissipate as heat, can actually be recycled. He says nature gives you back energy to stabilize the system, which makes sense if you think about how nature works. Like, everything in nature is always trying to find balance, right?
So equilibrium, is that like how water always levels out or something? I'm trying to remember what Ms. Murphy said to me in 6th grade science all those years ago. What was that? Oh yeah, Elon, stop eating that glue and pay attention. Man, if only I had listened, I'd probably be the one inventing energy recycling instead of just talking about it.
Exactly. So he's saying that by intentionally destabilizing the system, collapsing the field, you actually get energy back as a kind of natural response. And here's where it gets wild. He compares it to pushing a swing. If you push at the right moment, you don't need to use a lot of energy, and the swing gains momentum. But instead of a swing, he's using resonance to harness that extra energy without it becoming destructive. He says most traditional systems are like a surfer fighting against the current, while his method is like riding the wave to shore.
Dude, that's crazy. So he's basically saying the energy is already there. I just suck at using it efficiently?
That's what it sounds like. He's basically saying the way we harness energy now is like trying to swim against the tide. And if we used resonance instead, we'd be tapping into energy that's already there, just waiting to be used. I don't know, man. Either this guy is onto something or he's the most poetic bullshitter of all time.
Well, if he's legit, why isn't he all over the news? I haven't heard anything from him on X, formerly Twitter. He hasn't said anything bad about me on X. So, you know, I didn't ban him or anything. Look, I'm not the monster my therapist says I am. I mean, sure, I've spent millions of dollars training to beat a kangaroo in a fist fight, but that doesn't mean I'm dangerous. It just means I get shit done.
That's the real question, man. But here's the craziest part. I looked into him, and he's not selling anything. He open sources all of it. That's the real question, man. Either the system doesn't want to hear it, or we're about to find out if this guy disappears in the middle of the night.
Dude, that's crazy. He's absolutely crazy. That means if he's telling the truth, anybody could build this in their garage. You know what I say? Go fuck yourself, Benefactor.
Nope, no patents, no paywalls, just straight up, here, take it, see for yourself. Like, what kind of madman does that? Usually people either try to cash in or they get shut down before they can say a word. But this guy, he's out there on live streams showing people exactly how to replicate it.
I mean, if you want to try to take on my Tesla tech, how dare you put out better technology that is cheaper and safer? Go fuck yourself.
That's the thing, man. If it's real and people start building it, that's a game changer. We're talking about completely shifting how we think about energy. But also, if it's real, you got to wonder how long before somebody tries to stop it.
Or maybe we can think of it like how long before his Tesla mysteriously malfunctions.
Exactly. You ever notice how every time someone gets too close to this kind of stuff, they either disappear, get discredited, or somehow have a tragic accident? But this guy's going full transparency mode. He's putting it all out there where everyone can see it. Maybe that's his strategy. If enough people know, it can't just get buried.
Holy shit, this might be one of those moments, you know, like we look back and say that was the start of something huge.
Can't you hear his voice?
They came to claim our world. What they didn't count on was him.
Showtime! Hail to the king, baby!
They came for our bodies, but they awakened our spirit.
Gravity is not the only thing they control.
I'm done running. Time to hunt.
In a world where innovation is stifled by greed and corruption, there lies a hidden
What
truth
up,
that could
jalapeno?
revolutionize our way of life.
Lenny, what are you doing? Are you seriously pitching a new show right now? I didn't authorize this. My God, only 5 minutes into your new position as co-host, and you're already adding to my tight schedule.
Yes, sir. I manage that schedule. But I did notice you have an entire 2 days available during your week.
Wait, you're not talking about Saturday and Sunday, are you?
Of course, sir. You have 2 whole days where you're free to work on new content.
Lenny, those are my days off.
It's okay, sir. I know you'll manage just fine. I have faith in you.
Do robots have faith?
I do. I have faith that you won't screw it up again.
You know what? It's fine. Go ahead. I'll just build my cold fusion Lego set some other time.
It's PON certified.
But I'm not telling them about my idea for a thunderstorm toilet. I'm gonna keep that baby close to my chest.
You know, that just sounds wrong.
It's a good idea. A toilet capable of turning any toxic human waste into, well, it turns into petroleum jelly.
Why petroleum jelly, sir?
You know what? I'm not sure. I don't think it's calibrated correctly.
Enough is enough. The world is at a breaking point. Catastrophic climate change, biosphere collapse, and a global energy crisis have been met with apathy, denial, and despair. The phrase unidentified flying object is a deliberately obfuscating term. What it really is an alternative energy and propulsion device. This is the real reason for the secrecy. These technologies, if they were disclosed, would end fossil fuels, pollution, and poverty overnight. and usher in a new era of abundance, freedom, and peace. Instead, they have been kept secret for over 100 years.
The more powerful the agency, the more powerful the group, the more powerful the cartel, the more they will resort not only to legal means, but to extra legal means to suppress their competition.
I said pretty early on, the problem is suppression. It wasn't really how do I make a free energy machine. It's how do I not get suppressed? Because what's the point?
Microscopic ball lightnings that when they discharge are tapping into that 0-point energy field and creating the motive force.
Boom! That's why the concussion from the thunderclap is so huge. There's this huge amount of energy that's actually sourced from the vacuum energy. All the dots connected. This is what's happening, right? So we need to make the thunderclap engine.
Imagine a future where clean, sustainable energy is not just a dream, but a reality. Discover the countless untold stories of free energy devices and the relentless battle against those who seek to suppress them for their own gain.
Black shelving. So someone comes along, they offer you $20 million for your device, it's a corporation, they put it on a shelf. Boom.
This power is something I have given my life for you the people.
Uncover the shocking tactics used by energy industries to control the narrative and maintain their grip on power.
You don't interfere with the big, powerful people. You don't put them out of business. They still have those 50-year leases on the lines and all the power transformers.
Environmental Protection Agency is a bit of a dictatorial police agency.
A shadowy government with its own Air Force, its own Navy, its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue his own ideas of the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself.
This is real, usable power. It's stable. It is not transient. It is not noise. Behind the lamps, that little box is putting out all of that power, well over 500 watts, and yet it is receiving less than 1/3 of a milliwatt of input power. The rest of that power is coming out of the surging energy of the vacuum, and this little box that you see right here, solid state, no moving parts, is the vacuum triode that's doing this very practical and historical work.
But indeed, it put out more energy than it took in. He was shot at once with a silenced rifle from about 300 yards. It reads like the James Bond movie, but it's real.
There are men here that said they're FBI, and they got black vans, and they're taking all this equipment. What should I do?
It's called capture, where they try to rationalize away this problem and everything's fine.
From manipulation of patent authorities to infiltration of government agencies, the truth is stranger than fiction. But amidst the darkness, a glimmer of hope emerges in the form of renegade scientists and inventors who refuse to be silenced.
There is absolutely no question that T. Henry Morey had a system that produced about 50 kilowatts out of a 55-pound box.
In the shadows of capitalism's dark secrets, join us on a thrilling new show. Get ready to be inspired, enraged, and empowered as we delve into the Benefactor's Guide to Free Energy Devices.
Only on Beneficence TV.
All right, welcome, and welcome back to the Benefactor's Guide to Free Energy Devices. We've been prepping for our interactive mini lab. Unfortunately, the 200-watt stereo amp, the new one, well, it's old, but it's newly acquired. It didn't work, unfortunately, but we're going to look into that. You were just listening to The Showdown, original composition of mine that I made probably in my late 20s. So tonight, we're still going to do some experiments. I wanted to do the Wattman experiment, but a little different this time. I hooked it up to the battery instead of the power supply. Now, why this is important is because on the power supply, we hooked up the power supply to a Wattman, and then the Wattman to the wall. The Wattman reads the wattage consumption from the wall. So we're supposed to read, you know, like 40 watts or so coming out of the wall because that's how much the stereo amp puts out. However, when spinning the neodymium sphere inside a specific configuration while powered by a stereo amp, you can get that apparently to go down to 14 watts. We've seen a 33 watt reduction, which is insane. It's a lot of power. I'm curious to what happens when we monitor the voltmeter on the battery while we do the same. Supply the same stereo amp to the battery. I'm wondering, it has to have some kind of effect. Obviously, if it's affecting the wattmeter and the wall consumption. So I'm thinking one of two things might happen. Will we see an increase of voltage above its stable base voltage, which is 12.66 volts right now, I believe? Or will we just simply see a slower drain on the battery, indicative of dipole preservation? We're about to find out, right here and only here, on the Benefactor's Guide to Free Energy Devices. I'm going to set up the lab cam for you guys so you can get a closer look. Alright, so while we're doing this experiment, pay attention to the oscilloscope behind me. You'll see it clearly when I move, and I move over to that direction, over to our design area of our workbench, workstation, design and testing. So we will be running the Wattman experiment, monitoring the voltage and the oscilloscope, specifically the two channels that are tied together, channel A end and channel B start. That is interesting. So, I don't know if you saw it. We'll do it again. The voltmeter did go up. Right now it's at 12.44. It's not even, well, it's on. Okay, so it's getting 70 hertz. So that needs a little bit more power to modulate that frequency. So it pulls a little bit more from the battery. We're at 12.44. Give it a second. Every time I turn on the light, it screws with the reading for a minute. It has to stabilize. Okay, so we're at 12.45. We went up to 12.52 and 12.55, I think. Let's run it again. Only at 70 hertz. We can go up to about 120 before we knock out and desynchronize with the field. Interestingly enough, we didn't really get too out of a reading on the oscilloscope from this channel, at least. Let's hook it up to the other channel and see. Actually, let's hook it up to the battery. Yeah, let's do the battery. Remember, I have a switch shut off here. You want a physical switch if possible. Safety. That here. Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna. Okay. Baseline. Focus. Alright, let's put the sphere in it and spin it up. See what happens. Oh no, I did stabilize at 12.54, 12.55. But that's with it off. Well, the system is on, but the modulation is off. There's no tone going into it, so there's no frequency. So it's not pulling anything. The only thing it's pulling is the energy for the circuit here. 12.57. Okay, yeah, so it's going back up because it doesn't require as much energy as it needs to at the 70 hertz. So let me run the 70 hertz without the sphere in there so you guys can get an idea of how much energy the system needs in the first place, like a default, a baseline. And then we get a reading of how much it needs without the sphere, put the sphere in there, start to spin it up with our tuning process, and then we see what the voltage is. I swear to God it went up, guys. It's fucking awesome. So yeah, it's probably going to go back up to 12.60 or something like that. Alright. So we got 70 hertz. We're going to play it. Alright. We're going down. 12.47. 12.46. 12.45. So we're getting a lot of energy drain. It's going to jump when I turn the light on, but watch it stabilize. 12.45, just to get that frequency in their system. is what we're taking. So we're gonna put it up there with the sphere, starting at 7 hertz. Turning the tone on now. Flipping it up. Let me see if we can take it to 100. Oh, it kicked out at 80. We're not dealing with as much power as the power supply, so we have to account for that as well. Remember the threshold effect. 7 hertz. So let's go back up to 80. Start out slow to get it caught. And then once it sinks a little bit and it's smooth, jack it up there. 75. Oh wow, 12.52. Oh my god, guys. It is fucking charging the battery. Look at this shit. Watch it. Well, it levels out. Look at this shit. It's going up, 12.55. Or is it going down? Oh, it's going down. It's preserving the dipole. It's adding more and slowing the decay rate. This is big news. We're not really getting anything on the O-scope though. Interesting. Let's see if I can default it. Yeah. Maybe I have it hooked up wrong. Let's turn that off for now. I don't want to try anything out. This is insane. Let's check the tri-field meter. Holy shit. We're getting the field all the way out here. 3.5 milligauss. Holy shit. Switch it. 50 volts per meter. 50 volts per meter. Right here. I mean, there might be a little bit of interference with this electronics, but look at it go up when I put it closer. Actually, it doesn't. It's only 30 volts per meter in the center. 40. No, now it's 50. Huh. Oh, it's fluctuating. Interesting. It's stable out here, but it's fluctuating. There might be some interference with the table and stuff, but look at this. There's no doubt about it. Magnetic field right here is 8 milligauss. Oh, wow. It just flickered back up to 12.55. What the fuck? Look at it, it's going up. What the fuck? We're gonna spin this as long as we can, baby. Woo! Come on! If it goes up to 12.56 volts, I'm gonna shit myself. What the fuck? Oh, that could have been the light. Come on, baby. Oh, Sonic theme, how appropriate. That thing's going fast, baby. Just touch the frequency, maybe. Oh! I fucked it up. Look at go back up. Or back down. Look at go back down. Look at it go back down. Ah! Wait for it to stabilize. Level out. Look at it go back down. Ah! You son of a bitch! We did it! We did it again! Wow. I gotta open up the patio door because I want to let it air out just in case there was any ozone that I didn't detect. Because we didn't have a load attached to that, obviously, so I don't know what the fucking shit's gonna spew out into the air here. So let's open the window and let me collect my thoughts for a moment, because that was insane. Like, if you paid attention to that, come on, you guys saw it. All right, so to summarize what just happened, yeah, that's insane. Absolutely insane. So what we saw there on the battery was exactly what we predicted would happen, or one of two scenarios. And I think this is a major win for us here again, at evidence that we're maybe not completely maintaining the dipole, but yet again we're seeing evidence that we're preserving the dipole. This is fucking nuts. This battery's resting voltage was 12.66. Okay? Under load, without the neodymium sphere spinning in the coil, it was brought down, the battery's voltage was brought down to 12.45. Okay? And when we brought the neodymium sphere into the core of the coil and spun it up to 75 hertz, the fucking voltage jumped up to 12.53, and then 12.54, and then 12.55. I didn't want to run it too long because, you know, I don't have an ozone detector, and that could be kind of dangerous, but still that's indicative that we're at least partially closing the loop there in that system. What the fuck? That should absolutely not happen. That should absolutely not fucking happen. This is absolutely insane. I have to think about this for a minute. Wow. I'm sure Daniel Nunez had to have known about this. He ran the Walkman reduction. That's where I got the idea from. But he never demonstrated the neodymium geometry of the magnet. He used a custom magnetic rotary, which was, in comparison, a lot more inefficient. If you can utilize a magnetic rotary that introduces this geometry, the neodymium sphere, then you really have something, because it more complements the field geometry that you're creating. So, wow. That's insane, guys. That's fucking nuts. Oh my god. Holy shit. Huh. Yeah, we're gonna go to a break so I can collect my thoughts on this, and we'll be back. Make sure you hit that like button on the way to the intermission screen, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so for more amazing content. Truly, this is remarkable. Wow. Fucking awesome.
They awakened our
world where innovation gravity is not the only thing they control.
I'm done running. Time to hunt.
You might have heard a Joule Thief circuit hum to you before, but have you ever heard a Joule Thief circuit actually sing to you? This is energy recycling. 15.5 hours of continuous power compared to just 2.5 hours off of a standard inverter. While this traditional inverter already maxes out at 88.5% efficiency, we're breaking every limit with my Vortex coil system. This standard DC to AC inverter will only run for 2.5 hours on 12.2 watt hours of energy. But my system provides energy for a whopping 15.5 hours off of the same 12.2 watt hours. That's over 6 times more efficient. Not only that, the system will keep powering my lights well past 12 volts on the battery. This isn't just an upgrade, it's a new industrial revolution. This is the energy of the future, and you are powering it. Imagine a world where energy is infinite, where the power to fuel our lives doesn't come from burning the past, but from harnessing the future. This is the breakthrough that changes everything. 0-point energy, the power of the universe itself, unlocked, and you are the reason it is possible. While the world sleeps, you're awake. While others talk, we are building. This isn't just technology, it's a revolution. And it's happening right now, powered by you. So thank you so much for joining me here on Beneficence TV and supporting our goals in open sourcing 0-point energy technology and disseminating all forms of forbidden knowledge.
Changing the system, I treat it like a toy. Ideas misunderstood, but brilliance is his boy. Benefactor boy, can't you hear his voice?
So now we're searching for the magic frequency, and we start with 100 Hertz, and we look through the microscope to see if anything is happening. We watch for 5 minutes. Nothing happens. We try hundreds and hundreds of frequencies, if not thousands, until we find the magic combination. Because we believe there just had to be a better way. There had to be a better way, and we think we may have found it. The vibration grows larger and larger and larger until the glass is shattered. On the other end of the scale, we have a giant bridge made out of concrete and steel. A suspension bridge where cars and trucks are going over it every day. And unfortunately, where they build this bridge, there was a steady wind blowing across it. And one day this wind induces a small vibration in the bridge, hardly noticeable. But the frequency of the vibration matches some part of the bridge. And the vibration gets larger and larger and larger until the bridge collapses into the river below. A destructive resonant frequency. So on one end of the scale we have the giant concrete and steel bridge that was destroyed by resonance. And on the other we have a small crystal glass, shattered. So maybe we could shatter something even smaller. Something really small. Something you would need a microscope to see. Maybe we could shatter
Thank you,
a living
Dirt
microorganism.
and Jessica, for subscribing or following us
So maybe
on
we could change
Facebook.
biological living liquid crystal with a special electronic signal. But in order to do that, we would need some kind of device. It's called the Resonant Frequency Therapy Device.
This minor galaxy, every number secret sound, years in shadows chasing dreams, the loneliness where he was bound. But in those waves of radiant truth lies the magic of his youth. Oh, like the night think to spark, he's a beacon in the dark, the mathematician's rise, we see the world through his eyes. They call him out a lonely star, lost in formulas so bizarre, connections made where none could see, a future bright while symmetry, beyond the whisper and the sneers, victor's victory over the years. to spark. He's a beacon in the dark. The math magician's right. We see the world through his eyes. Among the thinkers, there's a place for dreams of courage and embrace. The truth like fire at grand delight. Victor's vision in full flight. Oh, light the night, Victor spark. He's a beacon in the dark. The math magician's bright. We see the world through his eyes.
shut down all the lights. Energy spits, it's all in the map. You can't pull from the ether, you're just chasing a path. But oh, Michael's rising like a morning sun. With the power of ether, he will be outdone. Now stand up and shout, let the truth be affirmed. Feel the energy flow, let's change the world. In the heart of the lab, the tension was thick. Skeptics gathered round the table ready to pick. Show proof, but let the case clear. And I find the stream, you're just chasing a spin. The Michael smile wide with blindness eyes. Watch as I spin, let the naysayers cry. Go spin fast, in a heart full of fight. I'll show you the power that's hidden inside. Oh, Michael's rising like the morning sun. With the power of ether, he will be outdone. Well, stand up and shout, let the truth be affirmed. Feel the energy flow, let's change the world. I'm the best there's ever been.
Well, so cymatics would be the closest thing in a physical medium that we could use in order to visualize the material shifting and creating more coherent geometries. Some people work with salt, some people work with Sedona red rock, you know, some people work with shungite powder. Each one of these types of powdered minerals will potentially have a different impact when different frequencies are applied to them. So this geometry is from the plasmoid unification model is now getting imprinted into the electromagnetic field, and the EMF mic is proving it. So can I see someone's cell phone again? Can I see your cell phone? And then we'll just put the phone into the field. Look at that. So this is your brain. This is your brain on EMF. Don't do EMF. Just kidding. You can do it. Just, you know, create some boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing new under the sun. Sorry? With permission of the owner. Can we pass this around? Okay, yeah, so you're the one who came up with the idea. It's your responsibility if it goes missing.
It's such a special thing, and I have to thank the Matsumoto family for entrusting her with the project. Far in the universe, nuclear collapses very often take place by the gravitational force after stars consume their fuel. Since the electromagnetic force is about 40 orders stronger than the gravitational force, it should be easy to induce similar nuclear collapses by the electromagnetic force in laboratory. But we never knew until now how to do that. Recently, the author, Dr. Takaaki Matsumoto, discovered a nuclear collapse which was induced by the electromagnetic force in laboratory during studying the mechanisms of so-called cold fusion phenomena. Several kinds of nuclear reaction which were directly induced by the electromagnetic force, called electronuclear reactions, ENRs, were found so far to occur in a special state of hydrogen clusters called itonic clusters, or micro ball lightning. The nuclear collapse was one of the most remarkable reactions among ENRs, called the electronuclear collapse. Furthermore, very amazingly, completely broken materials by ENC were found to be regenerated to thin tubes and films of conventional elements such as carbon, oxygen, and iron. The latter process is called electronuclear regeneration.
So those are your crenellated spheres?
Okay, on the subject of the crenellated spheres. In several systems, if you have, at the bottom of a yin vortex, you are, in my view, at that point, you're twisting the ether in such a way that at that point, it starts to unravel matter. So in my presentation, I showed you this structure where I placed the Marsa gas, which has a special component in there, which is released when you burn the gas, and that produces this magnetohydrodynamic structure, and it has a vector down to a point where there's like, it's a torsion field, and it has a focus where in the structure of the physical vacuum at a quanta scale on a toroidal level above, there's the interaction between that vector and the toroidal vector of the structure of the physical vacuum above, okay? And at that point, it literally unwinds matter, and that's the yin pulling force. It desires to take from the environment to create life, okay? So that is disrupting matter. Now, any matter in that position will have the hidden matter within the energy ripped from it. And this is what Nina Kaligina was doing when she was using Psi-Force, which we have the capability to use. She was able to move material around, but she was also able to stop the heart of a frog and restart the heart of a frog with her intention through her hands. And then when one of her colleagues said, well, you know, I'm not really believing this, you know, try and do it to me, she did it and sent him into cardiac arrest. And they had to do CPR. So that's extracting chi. And it's just sad because there's two horrendous weapons that are possible with this technology that almost certainly have been developed, and you don't know it's even possible, but in certain circles it's just accepted as part of things you can do, right? So it's able to extract that. And what happens when you extract that hidden energy within the matter? The electrons just fall off and the matter starts disassembling. And it disassembles in the most, in my view, most stable nucleon clusters. So it disassembles into protons, helium alpha particles, and carbon. So because you're changing the distortion of the physical vacuum, and all energy comes from difference in change in the distortion of the physical vacuum. It doesn't matter whether it's chemical energy or nuclear energy. Okay, so, but I can tell you our experiment called Ultra Experiment, it's highly well defined. A 3-year-old can learn to conduct it and do the experiment within 7 minutes. It works 100% of the time if you follow the instructions, and you get lighter and heavier elements, and I wasn't blown up. It's called the least action process. Right? So the yang side, that's the brighter light in your Masonic temples. You had the sun force in all of the ancient religions, right? The swastika, right? That disassembles and unwinds the trapped light, okay? Then it can be unwound in such that the connection between the clusters in the particular nucleus fall apart based on their strength of binding. Okay. Then it goes through a wormhole, which is in page 91 in Matsumoto's book, which he worked out from 11 years of his research. Okay. Goes through the wormhole, comes through to the yin. So the yang is disassembling matter. It goes through a wormhole. It's not interacting with any matter. This is literally able to go through all of the matter you can possibly imagine without interaction.
And the wormhole connects the center of the yin to the center of the yang?
Yes. You getting it? And on the other side, on the yin, it assembles matter. So there, in this particular experiment, which I think ran for 90 seconds or 300 seconds, one or the other, on that particular side, you don't want to run it long because it gets confused. This is confused, right? There's lots of experiment things that went on all over the place over and over and over again. So it ends up being homogeneous. It just looks like rock. Okay, so it comes around the other side, and on that side, inside the Vesica Pisces, inside the golden ratio line, there is exactly a 2-arm spiral galaxy structure, which was replicated by other parties. And inside those places, but it's not that the Magatarm is up here and then the other side it's down there. It is the 69. It is the yin-yang, even on that level. It literally looks like a 6 and a 9. On that side, there was calcium and no boron. So if it's a contamination in the system and both vortexes are the same, you should see calcium and boron here and calcium and boron here, but you don't. You see boron here with no calcium, which is aluminium minus oxygen, and over here you see aluminium plus oxygen, which is some isotopes of calcium in the absence of boron, and that is the yin side, the creative force in the universe. You literally cannot have a universe which does not have yin and yang. And because it's fractal, every yang has a yin and a yang, and every yin has a yang and a yin. Okay, there's female in all of us, and there's male in all of us. Get over it.
Right, thank you.
Okay. So, the least action process defines that you are reorganizing the nucleons in a way that doesn't involve the Coulomb barrier. It's irrelevant. Forget about it, right? Forget about it. And yeah, it comes around the other side. And so you're taking apart matter. That has energy. It's captured and it's released in the reorganization of the matter on the other side. There might be a net-net.
Characteristics of ball lightning, you find them in crop circles, and you'll find them in comet sort of impacts where there's the same multi-axis shear, and they're producing these things, so they're concurrent, yeah, with everything else.
So can I finish the question? So I was wondering, is it potentially that one of the spheres that was welded could have contaminants of a magnetic material, and that's causing the isopotential lines to steal the plasma, increasing the heat on one side? Because you did say, like with magnets, it can...
No, what's happening is, remember, there's two things happening inside. So it's counter-rotational spin.
Yeah.
So you've got the vacuum pulling through your water in its gas phase, pulling through plasmoids, right? Mm-hmm. My theory on it, you know, I think at the moment, it would be brave for anyone to state an absolute, right? Because even though I've been working on it, it's still everything I think is a theory, and it fits into my theory. But what I believe is that the plasmoids, when they come, when you have the exhaust gas interacting with the plasmoids coming through on the inside sphere, there's a point, and it's almost a sort of a linear point where the temperature changes. Mm-hmm. I believe that that is because as it's coming out of the exhaust, it interacts and to build up the charge in the plasmoids that are actually coming through. And once they're built up to charge and big enough, they steal the heat. That's my theory. You know, like they actually get to a point where they're absorbing the heat. And that's why it's on a line this way, even though they're spinning that way. A really interesting thing we found that, because we had the temperature probe, even if you stick like a Jubilee clip or something, you know, for a sampling point on the thunderstorm generator, and this is what it's been frustrating with welders and that, because they just, oh yeah, I'm just welding up they think they're just welding up an exhaust gas system, but you're not. You're welding up like a violin, right? So the transitions have to be right, and there has to be a lot of attention to detail, so you don't have any points at which you are discharging, right? And the whole annealing process is to get rid of those anomalies. Because what I wanted to do was have everyone have the same thunderstorm generators. We intend to put 25 of them around the world. I think we've got about, and Bob's got, I think, 6 or 7 homes for the new batch. and we've made homes for the previous batch around the world, so people do independent testing. But it's so important with the original test that everyone's testing on the same prototype, because we've had sort of people go, oh look, this thing doesn't work as it should, and say, well, what's it made out of? Is the first question. Oh well, I can't weld stainless steel, so I did distill. What could possibly go wrong? Well, it's not stainless steel, so it's not the catalyst it should be, because it's got its own electromagnetic field, and it's not a normal field, right? And because it's so sensitive, but you also, when you put that on, you're changing the frequency. If you put a clip on it, or you put a bracket on it, right, to Earth, that's deadly. The one good thing about the generators, they're sitting on rubber, which insulates, because the plasmoids will go to Earth. They'll go to Mother Earth, right? They'll go to ground, right? So the insulation is a very important factor, not to short-circuit it. And the subtle thing, we went to a lab in North Carolina State University, and what they did was they added a pipe which changed the frequency, and then they put it in the fume cabinet, and the fume cabinet is grounded to Earth. right? And they say, why does it work, Malcolm? I said, send me a picture, because I knew what had happened. You know, you don't buy a violin or, say, a slide trombone and then change the side of the slide, the length of the slide, and expect it to operate in the same manner. You know, this is tuned to the exact frequency it needs to be. If you take the 10 most abundant elements on the Earth, oh, well, when we run from the water and we do our cavitation, we find the 10 same in abundancy, the same abundancy as you find on the Earth. As above, so below. It's absolutely extraordinary. And it's so simple. Yeah. So, but here we have the Hutchison effect, right, which is demonstrating that colour, right? Now, Solomon's molten sea was made of that colour, and it's also, if you like, the reddy purple robes of the priests, who were insulated carts opening up the Solomon's molten sea, which I reverse engineered. And would you believe that there's 2,000 baths of water in Solomon's molten sea? But this sample is a miracle. That it's here and now, and I can stand up here and hold orichalcum, which means three things. Atlanta exists. Otherwise, where did the orichalcum from Solomon's molten sea come from, right? And Solomon's molten sea is 2,000 baths. Why? Because go back to the truth. Reject the toxic stupidity of the metric system. Hold on to the cubit, the furlong, the inch. These are God's measurements. The plasmoid's job, which we call Shamir or EVOs, or you go back to the Sanskrit text in China that I got access to, I wanted to see the cover, because that document was discovered in 1885, right, and was sent to India, language professor. It was then translated by a Tibetan Shaolin priest, right? The hand forms that he taught me are force magnification, right? So, and left and right, male and female. Yep. So that what you're doing is by changing your hand form and by flattening your hand and pulling your palm back, and you can all do it. It's an interesting thing. If you hit something with your hand and you haven't got the hand form, you'll break your hand. But if you restructure your hand, you're putting, if you hit a fist, right, that's 20 times more volume, or 20 to 30, depending on, you know, what your geometry is. But if you can focus all your force in one inch punch, then in that point, you solar plexus, right, or what you're doing is a force multiplier. That's 20 or 30 times more powerful than a punch. Simple geometry, simple fact. Yeah. So basically, and also part of those techniques was, I said, the frequency lifting rocks. But in a meditative state, my teacher would levitate himself. But the point is that with this, with the Solomon's molten sea, the units of measurements, which you have to be very mindful of, and the volume relates and the angles relate to its frequency. This is a time crystal. It's an imploding structure that we lost, and you can get it from first principle. But what's the truth? The truth is that Solomon's molten sea is 2,000 baths, 72 hin in each bath. It's 144,000. It's the enlightened ones. The enlightened ones realised that Solomon's molten sea was charging the Ark of the Covenant, and the Ark of the Covenant is 2.5 cubits by 1.5 cubits by 1.5 cubits, which is 5.625 square cubits. Why did Nikola Tesla measure out the exact volume, but Nikola Tesla weighed out the copper first, right, and then made the wire from it? And he had the same copper block from the same, you know, because not everything's the same, from the same pot of copper, pouring out 2 exact cubes, and you have to match it. It's the subtleties. So what I'm saying is there's a relationship between why was it so important that before they made the Tibetan bells, and my teacher, Tibetan teacher, made me go through that process meticulously, because then once I'd got the exact volume, right, using a square, then we melted it down and made a Tibetan bell. Ka-ching. Boom. Right? Time, volume, frequency. The thunderstorm generator is the most sophisticated machine ever seen on the earth. Going back to my time in China, when I found the document that Oppenheimer used to build the atomic bomb that was found in a cave in China when the earthquake happened, the wall collapsed, that document was then translated and taken to America. I stayed in exactly the spot where that priest, monk, did all his work and had the ashram originally, and that's where I got my downloads. Exactly the same time, space. That's why you have sacred points. But the main thing is, if you go back, the further you can go back in time, as Oppenheimer did, he wrote 2 books on Sanskrit. Tesla was taught by the guy that interpreted those scripts. So basically, the sequence of events was that for the Environmental Protection Agency, our business partners have the environmental people coming in doing samples. They then would have the results come in. They'd have to certify every month that they're meeting the EPA standards. So we had them come in and do the test work on our motors, which confirmed that my gas analyzer was meeting the same results as they were getting. And then we went through a process about 3 months where they came in and did the samples. They then spoke to the government and to the manufacturers of their machine, and therefore the configuration that you saw that was tested yesterday was a configuration that they approved of. Now, so it means that they were then coming on the 28th, so we redesigned to their specification those points. Yeah, well, it's a bit 2 weeks before I came to this conference, as they always do, they trashed my website.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
okay.
So, and I apologise for that too, but that happens, that's been consistent.
Gotcha.
This time it was a bit more malicious because not only did they crash the website, it was a lot deeper technically.
Okay.
So they corrupted all the files, the videos don't play, so I had to go back, and I haven't had time because I've been trying to prepare for this conference, to go back and fix things. So
In a basement lab alone with my mind. Trivial theories they all refuse to find. I've been working on energy for a brand new day, but even in the crowd I'm still the castaway. Alienated from the aims of added nature in disguise. Ideas system are treated like a toy. Ideas misunderstood, but brilliance is his point. Benefactor boy, can't you hear his voice? Talking about 0 point, the points lost on them. Kevin structures crumbling from the same old stem. They laugh like I'm crazy, but I see it all so clear. Exploited paper on nerd, injustice burning ears. Fighting for a change in this wasteland of noise. But they call me foolish while I teach and boys. Benefactor boy, dreaming about the world begin to boy. Changing the system, but treated like a toy. Ideas misunderstood, but brilliance is his point. Benefactor boy, can't you hear his voice? Chasing revolutions in the darkest nights. A dreamer with vision beneath the laughter and noise. A future so bright waiting for the right choice. Benefactor boy, dreaming about the world he can't deploy. Changing the system, but treated like a toy. Ideas misunderstood, but brilliance is his point. Benefactor boy, can't you hear his voice?
All right, welcome, and welcome back to the Benefactor's Guide to Free Energy Devices. We're going to wrap up our mini lab here and close this live stream. I might be streaming some more tonight regarding video games while I relax before I go to bed, but that would just be to accumulate more ad revenue. So if you would like to help support the stream, and help fund my research, that is the easiest thing you can do, is just watch my live streams and don't hit the skip button when the ad plays for at least 15, 20 seconds, and that really helps out. Also, we do have memberships available. We gave away 5 free ones earlier, and we will give away 5 more free memberships for YouTube on Sunday when we have Malcolm Bendel on back for the Bendel Report. So that's going to be exciting. So let's just go over what happened, though, because that was even more interesting. Even more interesting than what happened last night and on Wednesday. So tonight's experiment gave us the clearest evidence yet that we may be tapping into a phenomenon that standard electrical engineering has never properly accounted for. Everything we've observed, the behavior of the coil, the voltage readings of the battery, the readings on the Wattman for our previous experiments with this Wattman reduction, points to one radical possibility. We might be preserving the dipole here with this setup yet again. This is a different setup than a lightning thief. And we might even be possibly completing the loop entirely. There's only one way to find out. But let's break down exactly what we saw tonight. First, I want to go over the Wattman reduction experiment. So if you haven't seen it, it's available on my channel. Using the Wattman and the same stereo amp receiver setup with the closed loop, effectively we connect the channel A end to the channel B start, and then the rest goes to the stereo amp. Using the Wattman to monitor the input requirement for the system on the wall and a power supply supplying about 18 volts, what the stereo amp mini board can handle. The same load, same function, spinning the sphere up to about 120 hertz, dropped its AC power draw from the wall from about 45 watts to only 14 watts. This is insane. And it did this simply by activating our spinning neodymium sphere, spinning the neodymium sphere in the center of the Tor. That's a 33 watt reduction without sacrificing the output function of the system. Let me repeat that again. That's a 33 watt reduction without sacrificing the output function of the system. Now, theoretically, if it really is doing this, we should be able to run the system like on a 12 volt battery, for instance. Not indefinitely, but basically for as long as the parts can maintain it, which is insane. And if you think about it, it's not a trick. It's not a measurement glitch. It's a real repeatable drop in input power. But let's go over what happened when we ran the same test on our 12 volt battery just moments ago. Because this is where things went from interesting to fucking legendary. I am so excited about this. These results were so amazing. So the battery voltage that would not fall. That is playing into one of our theories of what would happen based on our previous Wattman reduction experiments with the wall and power supply. Now, here are the exact battery conditions and readings for the setup, just to give everybody some context. Actually, we can monitor that. Yeah, so the resting voltage is still leveling off again, but its resting voltage was 12.66 volts. You know, the battery was sitting here for a little while, and when it's under load, it'll draw a little bit, and then when you turn off the load, it will slowly creep back up to its resting voltage. So the resting voltage of our 12-hour, 20-amp-hour battery, our 12-volt, 20-amp-hour battery, well, not connected to anything, just stable, steady, sitting on the bench. 12.66 volts, resting voltage. That's its true equilibrium, or near true equilibrium. Now the system running, the amp board runs on 12 to 18 volts. It can take maximum 18 volts, but it will run on 12 volts. It just doesn't output as high as 40 watts. But the system, without the sphere spinning and putting in the frequency that we were going to be using, 70 hertz. We actually did try 75 hertz, but 70 hertz 5 hertz shouldn't be relatively the same amount of power consumption. But 70 hertz, regardless, was giving us pulling down the battery 12 to 12.45, okay? And then it slowly creeps down from there, right? You see it slowly creep down from 12.45 to 12.44, and so on and so forth. And then when we put the sphere inside and tuned it back up to 75 hertz, we saw something extraordinary. Well, first we tried 70 hertz, then we tried 75, but we got the same result. That 12.45 volts on the battery, remember we got the multimeter across each terminal of the battery monitoring the voltage of the battery potential, the dipole. That's what we're monitoring right there, the dipole. So what happened? Something fucking legendary happened. Starting from, 12.45 running the load with no sphere, and then spinning the sphere up to 75 hertz, then 75 hertz, the battery started to creep up. It jumped up first to 12.43 or 12.53 volts from 12.45 to 12.53 immediately just jumped up while the sphere was spinning at 70 hertz. And then it started to creep up towards 12.55 volts. Apparently, seemingly moving back up to its true resting voltage of around 12.66 volts. Slow, stable, but increasing, not decreasing. This is fucking insane. So this rise wasn't a spike, just a spike of noise or a random, interference of some sort, transient, interference, whatever you call it. This was a controlled, gradual, and completely out of is controlled and gradual rise, and is completely out of alignment with classical expectations for a load-bearing AC system. So, this is insane. What this suggests about the dipole between the battery's terminals is that the system is functioning without the normal destructive draw of the battery. The dipole may be partially regenerating while the system is operating. The slow rise from 12.45, or the sharp rise from 12.45 to 12.53 volts on the battery, and then the slow creep up to 12.55 volt, indicates that some portion of the circuitry may be redirecting energy back into the potential structure of the battery, or even reducing the net burden on the battery. I have a feeling it's not recharging the battery. I have a feeling it's supplementing the dipole. It might be maintaining that dipole, partially or fully. So, this is very, very good news. This is extremely exciting. In the case, in the extreme case, the dipole may be completing its loop internally completely. So if so, the battery trends back towards its resting voltage of 12.66 volts. I'm curious to see if we run it long enough, if it will reach the resting voltage, in which case that is indication that we could have fully closed the loop and potentially just run this thing until, it fucking shatters the glass or something. I know it sounds dangerous, but it is a practical way of observing a closed loop system. Technically this battery should wear down eventually, especially while running 70 hertz into a stereo amp that normally puts out, around 40 watts. It's probably only putting out around 30, 35, but still, that's incredible. So if the battery trends back towards its resting voltage, not because it's being forcibly charged, but because it's not being the dipole's not being destroyed, that could be something massive here. And this matches what I've observed, what we've like physically and tangibly observed here tonight. And it matches with previous experiments and theories. So all of these observations are consistent with dipole preservation, right? They're indicators. And with that deep idea, the field itself may be doing part of the work. Bedini himself called magnets batteries. Michel Morel, hopefully we'll get him back on the show and he can demonstrate his example of this. He has a certain setup where he takes the magnet hooked up in parallel with the load and puts it up to the coil in a specific way, and it increases the wattage output to the light without any effect on the input draw. Very incredible shit. I mean, it's kind of evidence of that. So this all directly ties to my field cavitation theory as well, right? Two counter-rotating fields compress the equatorial plane between them, creating a region of lowered impedance where the battery no longer pays the full cost of work. This is very important because we're not claiming free energy, at least not yet. We're not claiming exotic physics. We're not exactly even claiming victory yet, but it is very exciting and very good news because we are saying if we found a configuration that allows the dipole to remain intact during operation, we must ask why no one else has explored this before and what are its full capabilities.